Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had the will to rise part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story, My Hero Academia fan from AO3. So let's start the video. Izuku whimpers with tears in his eyes. Why are you being so mean? You're making him cry, Kaken. Izuku shouts while a little kid is behind him sobbing on his knees. Izuku gets into a fighting stance. If you keep on hurting him, I'll stop being myself. He shouts out to Bakugo and his gang. Bakugo and his friends blankly stare at Izuku. Bakugo smirks and says, "You want to pretend to be a hero?" Bakugo trails off and punches his palm, explosions coming from him. You don't stand a chance without a quirk. Deku, Izuku, startled, jumps back slightly, fear struck across his face as he gasps. Bakugo's demon wing friend flies rapidly towards Izuku with the long finger guy and Bakugo right behind him, ready to pounce. After Bakugo and his gang beat up Izuku for trying to stand up for himself and the little kid behind him, Izuku lies on the ground in pain. Here's the sad truth. All men are not created equal. When I was 4 years old, I learned that some kids have more power than others. But that won't hold me back. If anything, it pushes me to do better. Izuku runs through the streets of Mizudafu, splashing into a puddle along the way. He impatiently waits at a red light. Once the light turns green so he can walk across the street, he continues to run. He passes some sakura trees along the way as the petals slowly fall onto the sidewalk. He looks up in excitement as he sees what he was looking for in the distance. In the distance, a giant villain is rampaging in the middle of the town. He lets out a malevolent roar as Izuku approaches the villain scene, gasping for his breath with excitement still on his face. The massive villain stands on one of those subway bridges at Tatooine Station. Many civilians look on at the massive villain, and a police officer stands by with a megaphone. That's one huge supervillain. Izuku says. The first incident was in Qing Qing City. An extraordinary child was born who radiated light. After that, reports of people with superpowers popped up across the globe. No one knew what was causing these quirks. Before long, the supernatural became the totally normal. Dreams are reality. The world became a superhuman society with 80% of the population possessing some uncanny ability. Our streets looked like scenes from comic books. As cities swirled with chaos and confusion, a new profession dominated our collective consciousness. It was an age of heroes. The villain rampaged and knocked over structures. The civilians gasped as the villain continued its rampage. Death Arms ran up to the scene to catch a fallen structure. Death Arms grunted as he caught the fallen structure. The civilians gasped and looked at Death Arms. "Nice. Way to go, Death Arms," said one civilian. "The punching hero. I wish I had a quirk that made me super strong," said another. Backdraft joined the commotion and created a barrier out of water. "Everyone, please stay back. This area's far too dangerous." "Oh, the rescue specialist, Backdraft, is here," a civilian shouted out. "He'll make sure we're okay." "This guy must be pretty desperate to go full monster in the middle of the city," one civilian stated. "Do you know what happened?" asked another. "Just some amateur. Stole someone's bag and then got himself cornered," the civilian replied. "A quirk like that and he's just a petty thief," said the other. "I got held up. Train's out." Another villain. "I'm not sure when I'm gonna make it into the office," a civilian said while he was talking on the phone. He said looked up and let out a subtle gasp. The girls started fangirling over Kamui Woods. "It's Kamui. We're your biggest fans." Kamui runs into the action in order to subdue the villain. Kamui runs up to a traffic light, then jumps onto the bridge the villain is on. The villain acts but Kamui dodges. "Get away from me or I'll break you, toothpick," the villain said in anger. Kamui continues to dodge attacks. Izuku pushes past civilians in order to get to the front to see the fight more clearly. He gasps, "This is gonna be good." The villain strikes another attack, but again, Kamui manages to dodge and he wraps his branch arms around a piece of debris and swings himself over to it. "It's Kamui Woods!" shouts Izuku. Kamui retracts his branch arms and looks at the villain with determination. He may be new, but he's making a big name for himself. "One look at the dopey grin and I know what you are," says a man right next to Izuku. Izuku glances at him. The man points at him. "A fanboy," the man says with a smile. "Sorta." He skittishly replies with red cheeks of embarrassment. Kamui Woods runs along the train tracks towards the villain and jumps to dodge an attack, afterwards, jumping on the villain's arm and racing up it. Kamui extends his branch like tendrils at the villain and the branches latch onto the villain's other arm. The villain tries to throw Kamui away with a flick of his arm but fails miserably to make Kamui detach the branches on his arm. Kamui grunts as he twists and turns in the air, quickly landing on the roof of a train. The villain and Kamui share glances. Assault, robbery, and illegal use of power during rush hour traffic. "You are the incarnation of evil." Kamui shouts out to villain as he extends his arm again, the branches forming from his wooden arms. Izuku points. His special move. Izuku shouts. "Come on, tree man. Show us something flashy." The man next to Izuku shouts. Izuku forms a fist in front of him. The preemptive binding. Lacquered chain prison. Kamui and Izuku shout in unity. The villain holds his arm out in front of him to try and block the attack. Suddenly, a voice rings out amidst the heroics. "Canyon Cannon!" Mount Lady shouts as she kicks him directly into the chin, knocking him off the bridge. Mount Lady grunts and stands up straight after knocking the villain out with that kick. All the male civilians at the scene take out their cameras and start flashing pics, chanting out, "Money shot." Mount Lady bends over and grabs the villain's arm. "Piece of cake for the world's next hottest hero," Mount Lady says as she glances at the crowd. "Hey there, everyone. I'm Mount Lady. And you don't have to worry about this bum anymore." She winks. The people continue to take pics and chant out, "Money shot." Izuku writes notes in his notebook and Kamui pauses in shock, his preemptive binding. Lacquered chain prison still activated as the crows cheers for Mount Lady. "Wait, she's getting all the credit." Mount Lady waves to the crowd. With the rise of superpowers came an explosive increase in criminal activity. While governments were stuck trying to figure out how to reform laws with quirks in them, courageous people started performing heroic acts to keep our cities safe, protecting us against villains who abused their powers for evil. With overwhelming public support, heroes found an official place as peacekeepers overseen by the government. Those who performed the best were paid the most and got all the fame and glory. Their careers depended on their ability to stay in the spotlight. Gigantification, huh? Izuku muttered while writing notes in his notebook. "Well, she's definitely got the looks and attitude to be a crowd favorite and her quirk is really showy, but it'll be kinda strong for her to get around much without damaging lots of things. That means she might not be very useful." "What's that, fanboy? You taking notes over there? Wanna be a hero too?" "The same man from before," said as he peeked over at Izuku. Izuku glanced at him and quickly smiled. "More than anything," Izuku replied with a wide grin. "At Aldera Middle School. So, as third-year students, it's time to start thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives," the teacher said as Izuku sat in the back of the classroom, still writing down notes. "I could pass out some career aptitude tests, but..." The teacher trailed off and snatched a pile of papers off his desk. "Why bother?" The students started to activate their quirks. The teacher carelessly scattered the papers behind him. "I know you all want to go to the hero track." The students cheered and chaos ensued in the classroom and everyone's quirks activated carelessly. Yes, you've got some very impressive quirks. But no power usage allowed in school. "Get a hold of yourselves," the teacher said. "Page." Bakugo interrupted the cheering. "Don't lump me in with this bunch of losers," Bakugo said as he rested his feet atop his desk. "I'm the real deal, but these guys'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister." He looked towards the front of the classroom with a smirk. The students became angry. "You think you're better than us, Katsuki?" One student shouted, "Let's go. I'll take you all on." Bakugo said, "Huh. You've got impressive test results. Maybe you will get into you." "Ahai," said the teacher. The students quickly silenced. "He's gonna try for the national school?" A girl asked. "That school has a 2% acceptance rate." A boy shouted. "It's impossible to get into," said another. "That's exactly why it's the only place worthy of me." He grunts as he jumps onto his desk, standing atop it. "I aced all the mock tests. I'm the only one at this school who stands a chance at getting in. I'll end up more popular than All Might himself, and be the richest hero of all time." Bakugo shouted, a fist clenched in front of him. "People all across the world will know who I am, and it all starts with you." "Ahai." "Oh yeah, Midoriya, don't you want to go to you?" asked the teacher with a bored expression. Izuku quickly hid his face in fear and embarrassment for being called out like that in front of the entire classroom. Bakugo instantly shut up at hearing that. The students glanced at him and were quiet for a second before bursting into hysterical laughter. "Midoriya, you're kidding, right?" a student asked. "There's no way you're getting into the hero course without a quirk," the student continued. Izuku glanced around the classroom anxiously. He quickly stood up from his desk to defend himself. "Actually, they got rid of that rule. I can be the first one." Suddenly, Bakugo lunged at him, hands prepared to launch an explosion. Izuku got thrown out of his desk by the explosion Bakugo launched. Izuku fell to the floor. "Listen up, Dick. You're even worse than the rest of these demon rejects, you quirkless wannabe." Bakugo states, smoke emanating from his palm as Bakugo glared at Izuku. He formed a fist. "You really think they'd let someone like you in when they could have me? Oh wait, you've got it all wrong. Really?" Izuku shouted abruptly, trying to defend himself. Izuku scrambled to the wall behind him. "I'm not trying to compete against you." His back hit the wall and he flinched before continuing. "You gotta believe me." He looked at the ground as skittish smile on his face. "It's just that I've wanted to be a hero since I was little. I may not have a quirk, but I can still try my hardest, can't I? You'd never be able to hang with the best of the best." Bakugo shouted to Izuku, smoke still coming from his palms as the rest of the class glared at him. "You'd die in the exams." Defenseless Izuku, this school's already crappy. Do you really want to embarrass it more by failing so strong? The students laugh. At 12:02, in the streets of Mizudafu, a woman screams in panic. A store manager runs out of the store shouting, "Hey, get back here." The sludge villain runs through the streets, escaping. "Someone stop that monster." The store manager shouts. "Yell all you want, sucker. This cash is mine," shouted the sludge villain. A witness nearby sighs. "Dude, where are all the heroes? Weird, normally someone would swoop in right away." Another said, "Maybe they're all still busy from that scene this morning," said a third. "Remember when we didn't have to worry about randos with quirks all the time?" he asked. "Seriously, there's no stopping them. All Might buffens up behind the civilians while he's holding a grocery bag." "Yes, there is." The civilians turn around and gasp. All Might approaches heroically. "You know why?" The sludge villain notices him and gasps. "I am here. At 3:32 at Aldra Middle School. It's the end of class and the students exit the classroom." Izuku scrolls thought the news. "Man, that fight from this morning is all over the news." Izuku puts his phone in his back pocket. "Better write some notes down before I forget anything." He picks up his notebook and looks at it before Bakugo snatches it out of Izuku's hands. Bakugo glares down at him and waves the notebook in front of him. "I don't know what you think you're doing, Deku, but we're not done." Bakugo says. "Whatcha got?" "His diary." Bakugo's finger friend chimes in behind him. Bakugo holds up the notebook. "Don't tell me you're taking notes on how to be a hero. That's so pathetic." The boy says as he laughs, clutching his stomach. "He's delusional." "Yeah, real funny, guys. Just give it back." Izuku says anxiously. Bakugo holds the notebook between his hands and explosions shoot from his palms, burning the notebook. Izuku yelps. "That's so mean." Izuku retorts. Bakugo then proceeds to throw Izuku's notebook out the classroom window and Izuku screams in response. Bakugo scoffs. Most first-string heroes show potential early on. People look at them and just know they're destined for greatness. When I'm the only student from this garbage junior to get into you, people will start talking about me like that. They'll realize I'm legit, the next big thing. That's not ego talking, I just know I'm good. Bakugo explains. Ego, one of Bakugo's friends mutter behind Bakugo's back. Bakugo puts his hand on Izuku's shoulder, his hand smoking. Here's a little word of advice, nerd. Don't even think of applying or else. Bakugo trails off, leaving the threat hanging as Izuku anxiously stares at the smoldering hand on his shoulder. Izuku slowly looks up at Bakugo, whimpering. Bakugo and his friends walk off, leaving Izuku standing there. That's just sad. I thought you at least had some fight in you, said one friend. He finally gets it. He'll never be a hero, said the other. Better to find out now instead of later, I guess. Bakugo stops at the door to the classroom before glancing back at the frightened Izuku still standing near his desk. You know, if you want to be a hero that badly, there actually might be another way. Just pray that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, then take a swan dive off the roof of the building. Izuku snaps and growls with anger before abruptly turning around to glare at Bakugo. Bakugo holds up a hand crackling with explosions. Something wrong? Bakugo asks in a threatening manner. Izuku stands there trembling and whimpering, not daring to speak up. In the alleyway next to Aldra, Izuku slowly walks, obviously upset. That idiot. You can't go around telling people to kill themselves. If I really jumped, what would he do then? He glances at his notebook submerged in a koi pond. My dreams have turned into fish food. That's enough. Give it back. Izuku reached his hand into the koi pond to grab his notebook. Damn it. Izuku looks at his soaked notebook with a sad expression. Stupid JRK. What? Mom, hurry. Little Aizu quickly appeared from behind a doorway while his mom was hand-washing dishes. Come on. It's computer time. Izuku jumped up and down in excitement. Already? Inko asked in astonishment. Inko put the dishes back in the sink to do what Izuku asked. In Izuku's bedroom, Izuku sat impatiently at his rolling chair as his mom searched for the videos Izuku knows and loves. Faster. Let's go. Geez. I think you've added 10,000 views to this one yourself, Izuku. Inko said as she clicked on the video. I don't know why you like it, I think it's scary. The video I loved was an old one. Disaster footage from a long time ago. But more importantly, it was the debut of the greatest hero the world has ever known. On screen, a man asks, who is he? This guy's already saved 100 people at least and it hasn't even been 10 minutes. This is crazy. I can't believe it. The screen zooms in on All Might as he steps over debris with about 3 to 4 people in his arms and on his back. All Might laughs heroically. He's got more. Fear not, citizens. Help has arrived. Because I am here. All Might says on screen. Little Aizu yells out in excitement. He puffs his tea out in confidence as he lifts his All Might action figure into the air. He's the coolest in the universe. And once I get my quirk, I'm gonna be a hero just like him. Izuku stands in the doorway with a thoughtful expression on her face as Izuku laughs like a man on steroids. At the quirk doctor? Sorry kids, it's not gonna happen. Dr. Ujiko says. Izuku gasps and literally freezes, dropping his All Might action figure to the ground. Oh dear. Inko exclaims. So, you really think there's something wrong then? Inko asks Dr. Ujiko. Most of the kindergartners in his class have begun to show size already. My records say you're a 4th-generation quirk user. What powers do you and the boy's father have? Ujiko asks. Nothing too special. I can float small objects towards me and my husband breathes fire. Inko says as she telekinetically transports Izuku's All Might action figure to her hand. They're useful enough, I suppose. Izuku should have already manifested one of these quirks or a combination of both, but after viewing his X-rays, I don't think he's going to. Ujiko explains. You see, when superpowers first began appearing, There were many research studies conducted and doctors discovered a link between the bones in a person's food and their likelihood of developing a quirk. Ujiko continues as Inko glances at Izuku. People with power have only one joint in their pinky toe. Their bodies have evolved into a more streamlined version of the human form, Ujiko says and points at an X-ray of Izuku's foot. You can see here that Izuku has 2 joints in his pinky, like roughly 20% of the population these days. Based on the research that's available, it's safe to say your son isn't going to develop a quirk. Ujiko finishes talking. At Izuku's apartment. It's raining at night outside of Izuku's house. Izuku rewatches the All Might debut video for the god knows how manieth time. Inko faces the bedroom door for a moment before glancing back at her little Aizu who sits in his gamer rolling chair. See that, Mom? Izuku asks. There's always a smile on his face. No matter how bad things get, Inko turns around fully to listen to little Aizu. Even when things seem impossible, he never gives up. Izuku turns around in his chair to face his mother. Inko tears up when she sees his face. Aizu trembles as he looks at his mother and points to the computer screen. Do you think I can be a hero too? Izuku asks, his eyes full of tears. Inko slowly walks towards her son before quickly rushing to him and pulling him into a warm embrace. I'm sorry, Izuku. Inko says. I wish things were different, Mom. That's not what I needed you to say. Couldn't you see? My world was crumbling. There was only one thing I wanted to hear. Back to the present. Izuku approaches the overpass of a bridge. I made a decision that day. No matter what anyone else thinks, I have to believe in myself. And I'll keep smiling just like him. Izuku forms a fist of determination and grunts before walking under the overpass. He waves his fist in the air and laughs heroically. Suddenly, the sludge villain escapes the sewer system behind him and Izuku pauses before turning around to glance at it. He gasps and his eyes widen in fear as the sludge villain towers over him. A villain? He freezes and whimpers. You'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid. The sludge villain says. The sludge villain lunges out of the sewers towards Izuku as Izuku tries to run but gets captured anyways, dropping his hero analysis notebook to the ground, which opens up on a random page. The sludge villain muffles Izuku's screams with sludge as Izuku struggles against it. Don't worry, I'm just taking over your body. It'll be easier for both of us if you don't fight back. It'll only hurt for a minute. You'll feel better soon. The villain laughs. Izuku grabs at the sludge in an attempt to free himself to no avail. Can't breathe. Grab all you want. My body's made of fluid. Thanks for the help. The villain's eyes soften. You're a real hero to me, kid. Izuku flails about. I didn't know he was in the city. I gotta get out of here fast before he tracks me down. My buddy's getting... Izuku helplessly grabs at the sludge to no avail. I think I'm dying. No way. This can't be the end. Somebody. Izuku looks at his open notebook in the distance that's still on the ground, open to a picture of a hero costume with tears in his eyes. Suddenly, the lid to the sewer system burst open. The villain paused and turned around in horror. Have no fear, you're safe. All Might got out of the sewer system completely and stood up straight. Now that I am here, that is. All Might continued. The sewer lid hit the ground with a clank and the sludge villain launched an attack at All Might, but All Might bent down low to dodge it before lunging at the sludge villain. The sludge villain launched another attack and All Might slid to a halt and formed a fist while still holding his grocery bag from before. Texas? Smash. He shouted before blasting the villain with a massive shockwave. Can't pull together. The sludge villain shouted before exploding into a million pieces, freeing Izuku. Everything went in slow motion as Izuku slowly opened his eyes one more time to get a small glance at his savior, All Might. Izuku thought one more time before going unconscious. All Might gently slapped Izuku's face repetitively to try and wake him up. Hey, wake up. All Might shouted until Izuku finally woke up and All Might stopped. Thought we lost you there? All Might said. Izuku froze in shock, eyes wide with disbelief before scrambling away in a panicked frenzy. All Might stood up straight again. Well, it looks like you're moving around all right. All Might held up his hand. Sorry about that back there. I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicing. Usually I pay more attention to keep bystanders safe. All Might facepalmed. But, it seems this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate. All Might laughed heroically. Izuku remained a trembling mess as he continued to stare at All Might in disbelief. Anyway, you were a big help. Thank you. I've captured the evildoer. All Might held up 2 soda bottles filled with sludge with eyeballs attached. Izuku continued to tremble. The most amazing hero in the entire world. All Might? The real thing. In the flesh. Standing right in front of me. He looks so much cooler in person. All Might flashed his pearly whites at Izuku continued to stare. Izuku slowly looked around. Holy CRP. I gotta get an autograph. I've got a pen around here somewhere. He spots his notebook on the ground in the distance and Izuku gasps as he notices it. Please sign my notebook? He shouts as he opens it up only to find it already signed and he yelled squeals. He already did. Izuku bowed frantically as a form of thanks. Thank you very much. This'll be an heirloom. A family treasure passed down for generations to come. All Might flashed Izuku and thumbs up after placing the bottles of sludge in his pockets. He patted the sludge villain remains in his pocket. Well, I gotta get this guy to the police so they can take care of He waved goodbye. Stay out of trouble. See you round. All Might did squats as he prepared for takeoff. Izuku paused. You're leaving? Already? Izuku asked. Pro heroes are always fighting time as well as enemies. All Might responded. Izuku gasped, obviously not ready for All Might to leave yet. He can't go yet? There's still so many questions I have to ask him. After All Might finished his preparations, All Might bent down, ready for the jump. Now stand back. I'm taking off. He jumped into the air with impressive leg strength. Thanks for your continued support. All Might yelled out to Izuku, not expecting what's next. All Might glanced down at his leg only to find Izuku dangling, his facial skin going wild due to the rush of wind as Izuku screams wildly. All Might, obviously confused, shouts out, What do you think you're doing? All Might tries to desperately pry Izuku off of him. Let go. I love my fans but this is too much. No way. We're flying. If I let go now, I'll die. Izuku exclaims. All Might pauses. That's a good point. Izuku, with his facial skin still wobbling every which way, shouts out, I just have a lot of things I want to ask you. Personally, you're my all-time favorite hero. All Might, please. All Might, obviously getting annoyed at this point, says, Oh, I get it. Just keep your eyes and mouth shut. All Might orders and Izuku does just that, hanging real close to All Might leg. All Might grabs onto Izuku to keep him from falling and he sighs. All Might coughs and a drop of BLD escapes his mouth. All Might lands on a nearby building and sets Izuku down. Izuku looks absolutely traumatized and his lips look unbelievably chapped. He trembles. My whole life just flashed before my eyes. He rasps out. Not a very smart move. All Might says with his hands on his hips. Bang on the door for a while and someone will let you in. All Might begins walking towards the ledge of the rood. I have to go. See you on the flip side. All Might says, lifting up his hand as a goodbye gesture. Izuku glances up at him, not wanting him to leave yet as he has asked his important question. Wait, not yet? 1 second. Izuku reaches a hand out to All Might as All Might continues to walk to the ledge. I don't have any time. All Might shouts back. I have to know. Izuku shouts out, anxiously. Sorry kid, it's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, Izuku. Izuku keeps his hand reaching out as he recalls things people have said to him in the past that have damaged his self-esteem. I wish things were different. Izuku reels his hand back slightly. Defenseless Izuku, this school's already crappy. Do you really want to embarrass it more by failing so strong? Izuku pauses and stands there looking downwards at the ground. Sometimes, I do feel like I'm a failure, like there's no hope for me. But even so, I'm not gonna give up. Izuku clenches his fists at his side. As All Might reaches the edge, Izuku shouts out his most important question he's always wanted to know the answer to. Is it possible to become a hero, even if I don't have a quirk? All Might pauses at the question as he reaches the ledge. I'm a normal kid without any powers. Could I ever hope to be someone like you? Izuku shouted out another question following his first, cheeks red with embarrassment. All Might glances at him. Meeting All Might was a dream come true. A real miracle. Standing in front of me was the hero I'd idolized most of my life. I didn't realize it at the time, but that chance encounter would change the course of my future. Despite everything, I still dream. And I have to know. Izuku says, his fists tremble at his sides. As All Might approaches the ledge of the rooftop, Izuku blurts out his question. Is it possible to become a hero even if I don't have a quirk? All Might stops at the ledge at that question. I'm a normal kid without any powers. Could I ever hope to be someone like you? Izuku blurts out his second question following his previous one, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. All Might slowly glances back at Izuku as Izuku stands there waiting for the answer, stiff with embarrassment. Without a quirk? All Might asks before suddenly flinching and grunting with pain, which Izuku never noticed because his thoughts were running wild. All Might groans and grunts as he struggles to stay in his buff form, steam slowly emanating from him. Oh no! Not now, damn it. Not here. All Might grunts out as quietly as he could muster, hoping Izuku won't notice for the time being. Izuku finally relaxes his tense muscles with an ashamed sigh. People think I don't have a chance? That not having any powers makes me some kind of weakling. Izuku explains before starting to slowly twiddle his thumbs. My classmates like to make fun of me, but you know what? That makes me want to prove them wrong. Steam engulfs All Might as Izuku continues to speak. Ever since I was a kid, I've thought that saving people is the coolest thing you can do. Izuku smiles, feeling a newfound sense of confidence as he continues. I want people to see my fearless smile and feel safe. And be the kind of hero everyone in the world looks up to. He looks up with a smile plastered on his face. Just like you. When he looks up, All Might has turned into a skeleton of a man, steam still coming off him. Izuku yelps, his eyes wide with a grossed out, what the F is that expression on his face, sweating on the side of his face and a bit of snot hanging out of his nose for some unknown reason. Izuku screams out at the sight of All Might's horrifying new appearance. In an alleyway in Mizudafu, the crowd bustles along the streets of Mizudafu right next to a dark alleyway. The sludge villain grunts as he slowly opens his eyes to find himself trapped in a soda bottle. Where am I? What happened? He has a flashback of when All Might punched him to pieces. Oh yeah, that BSRD. If it wasn't for him, I'd be out of town already. Nearby in the same exact alley, Bakugo and his goonies are walking and talking. That was rough, said Mr. Slender Finger Man. Yeah, weren't you and Midoriya good friends back when you were kids? Asked the plain-looking friend. Yeah, you were a little harsh with him today, says Mr. Fingerman. McGee. It's his own fault for getting in my way. Bakugo replies while he holds a can of some sort. Then he kicks the bottle with the sludge villain in it. The bottle hits a pole outside of the alley and the lid pops off, allowing the sludge villain to free himself. You shouldn't waste your time on the guy, says Mr. Slender Fingerman McGee. Bakugo has flashbacks of Izuku in the classroom trying to defend himself with words. Bakugo growls. Someone's got to teach that worthless nerd how the world really works. He explains before blowing the can up in his hand. I hate it when he talks heroes. Bakugo says with anger before throwing the destroyed can on the ground with a clank. His friends chuckle in response. Hey, I got an idea, said the plain one. We should go to the arcade. Get your mind off it, you know. Fine. Bakugo grumbles. Or we can sneak into the bar at the station, suggested Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee as Sludge slowly starts approaching undetected for now. Pick up some ladies. Now that's a good idea, the plain one replied. Bakugo gets overrun with anger. Idiots. If we get caught, there's no way you would let me in. Bakugo yells. The plain one raises an eyebrow as he notices something strange at the end of the alleyway. Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee notices the Plain One's gaze and glances at him while Bakugo remains an angry dog of a teenager. Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee follows the Plain One's gaze and then they both appear startled and their eyes widen. The Plain One looks more confused than anything while Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee appears worried. "Hey, what's that?" They both ask in unison while Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee shows off his Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee traits by stretching his crooked finger out, pointing in a certain direction. Bakugo calms down slightly and looks where Mr. Slenderfinger Man McGee is pointing with a bored and annoyed expression on his face. The sludge villain towers over all three of them. "Perfect. I like a skin suit with some fire," the sludge villain says. Bakugo's eyes widen, also becoming intimidated despite his usual angry demeanor. Back on the rooftop with Izuku and All Might, Izuku screams in terror at the horrifying slender skeleton form of All Might. Hudash. Izuku stutters, seemingly at a loss for words at the very moment as All Might just stares at him with his skinny stickman arms on display staring at Izuku with a face that says, "I did not sign up for this. What happened? You deflated." Izuku shouts out. "Where'd All Might go?" He asks as he frantically looks around the rooftop for the buff #1 hero he's looking for despite the fact that All Might is right there in front of him. Izuku suffers the 5 stages of grief. He's on the stage of denial. "You're not him. You're a fake. An imposter." Izuku shouts in denial, pointing an accusing finger at All Might who still looks like he doesn't want to be here, which of course, highly unlikely that he does want to be there. "I assure you, I am All M-." He gets cut off as BLD starts dripping out of his mouth. Izuku screams in horror. "Impossible." Izuku screams out, obviously shaken by this revelation. You know how guys at the pool are always sucking in and flexing and trying to look buff? All Might asks. "I'm like that," he says, wiping the BLD off his mouth. "This can't be real." Izuku yells, still in denial. "Oh, I'm dreaming." All Might's a giant of a man who saves everyone. He defeats all obstacles and wins the day with a fearless smile. Izuku explains. All Might sighs. There's plenty of fear behind that smile. All Might sits down on the ledge of the roof, back against the fencing around the roof. "I'm counting on you to keep your mouth shut. Don't go talking about this to your friends." Izuku asks, his eyes still wide with horror. Suddenly, he jumps back in fear as All Might lifts his shirt up, exposing a nasty bruise-like scar on the side of his abdomen. "Pretty gross, right?" All Might asks as he looks down at the scar. "I got this in a big fight 5 years back. My respiratory system was basically destroyed. I lost my whole stomach. All the surgeries have pretty much worn me out. And it can't be fixed. Right now, I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day. Rest of the time, this is what I look like." "Oh wait, 5 years ago?" Izuku asked. "So, does that mean it was the fight with Toxic Chainsaw? Wow, you know your stuff." "But no. The punk maybe landed some hits but he couldn't bring me down. Most of the world has never heard of this fight. I did everything I could to keep it under wraps. I'm supposed to be the guy who's always smiling, right?" All Might asks and looks up at Izuku. "I'm the symbol of peace. People everywhere have to think I'm never afraid. But honestly, I smile to hide the fear inside. It's just a brave face I put on when the pressure's high. This job isn't easy." All Might explains as Izuku gasps. Pro heroes are always having to risk their lives. Some villains just can't be beaten without powers. So, can you be a hero? Not without a quirk. Izuku gasps. His dreams are crushed. Even the best of the best said it. He looks down, eyes wide, brows furrowed, and a nervous smile on his face. "I see." All Might gets up off the ground and stands back up. "If you want to help people, there are plenty of other ways to do it. You could become a police officer." All Might says as he starts walking towards the exit to the roof. They get CRP because the heroes capture most of the villains, but it's a fine profession. All Might opens the door to the roof and pauses while Izuku stands still in the same area. "It's not bad to have a dream, young man. Just make sure your dreams are attainable. Realistic, understand?" All Might says as he walks through the door and closes it behind him. Once All Might starts going down the stairwell, he says, "Now, let's get you to the station." As he pats his pocket where the villain should be contained. His expression turns confused and then his eyes widen and he pulls his pockets inside out just to find out they're empty. He freezes and then frantically starts searching left and right and all around him for the villain only to find the villain's not there. Suddenly, he hears an explosion and he looks out the window next to him and sees smoke and fire somewhere in the streets of Mizudafu. He lets go of his pockets now, understanding that the villain had really escaped and is running rampage in the city. Not good, All Might mumbles. Back on the roof with Izuku. Izuku hears the explosion and gasps, looking on at the smoke in the distance. Izuku then jumps into action and starts moving towards the door. A villain. I wonder which heroes will show. Just as Izuku is about to reach the exit, her freezes, remembering All Might's words. An anxious expression forms on his face as he remembers that All Might said he couldn't be a hero without a quirk. He sighs and starts moping towards the door, sadly. In Mizudafu, All Might runs as fast as his slender skeleton legs will carry him, as he's almost there. Witnesses scream nearby as chaos rises. Windows get blown out by explosions and witnesses are running away and screaming. The fire continues to spread. It's a monster. A woman screams out. Death Arms arrives and he gasps as he sees what's happening. The sludge villain stands amidst the chaos, seemingly unharmed by Bakugo's explosions who he's keeping hostage in his sludge. It's taken someone hostage. Death Arms announces. As he connects both fists together in preparation to try and save the captured teen. He starts running towards the sludge villain in anger. How dare you prey on a child? Death Arms grunt and punches the sludge villain but his fist just sinks into the liquid. What is this? Some kind of goo? He asks as he starts clawing at the fluid. The sludge villain throws Death Arms to the ground and into a metal wall. His sidekicks rush over. Are you okay, Death Arms? Says a hero in a weird bird-looking costume. Ha! Stay back or I'll snap his neck. The sludge villain threatens as he looks down at Bakugo who's yelling and struggling against the sludge. You picked the wrong guy to mess with? Bakugo yells. I'm gonna send you back to whatever sewer you crawled out of. He yells, still struggling as strong as he can, explosions shooting from his palms. Let me go. Bakugo activates another massive explosion. The wind from it hitting Death Arms as he puts his arms out in front of him to block the rush of wind. You've got so much power. The sludge villain admires. I really hit the jackpot. He grins maniacally. With a quirk like yours under my control, I can take All Might down with one punch. Nearby heroes gasp. Oh, is that some kind of special move? This dude is a legit supervillain. A civilian in the nearby crowd of bystanders says. It's her. Says another. Mount Lady is on the way. That new hero Mount Lady will stop him. As Mount Lady approaches, she gasps. My only weakness. I need at least a 2-lane road if I'm gonna make my way through here. Mount Lady exclaims as she struggles to put a foot through the small gap between buildings. Bakugo's friends are surrounded by fire from the explosions and they're scared. Kamui Woods grabs them with his branches and brings them to safety as he runs with 2 other witnesses. Fire and wood don't exactly make a good combination. I'll let someone else stop this guy. He says and then jumps into the air. Don't look at me. I've got my hands full here. Backdraft shouts back as he tries to extinguish fires with water hose-looking arms. Where are those fire trucks? Can you guys get to him? Can't get a grip on this guy's weird body. Death Arms replies. Plus, that kid's quirk is causing explosions left and right. Death Arms continues. This is a shutout, one of the sidekicks says. We've got to rally and knock him out of the park somehow. The sludge villain cackles with glee, feeling insanely powerful due to Bakugo's explosions and the fact that the heroes aren't able to do anything at the moment. The sludge villain launches an attack at 2 of the hero sidekicks. Incoming. One of them shouts as they both quickly dodge to get out of the way of the impact. It's no good, Death Arms says. None of us have the right quirks to stop a villain like this. We'll do damage control until someone with the right powers shows up. A sidekick hero replies. The fire ends up causing windows to bust out and more civilians scream. Backdraft continues, attempting to extinguish the fire with his water hose hands. There are still plenty of people to save. He shouts out to the other heroes at the scene. Kamui Woods, who is hanging on a rooftop with his branches, shouts, "Don't worry. I bet everyone in the city's coming." Death Arms feels guilty because he's unable to save him. "Don't worry. You'll just have to hold on a little bit longer." His fists tremble at his sides. "DMN," he shouts. "If I only had more power, I could blow this guy away." Bakugo remains captured by the sludge villain. All Might finally arrives at the scene, albeit he's still in his skeleton form due to using up his hero limit for the day because he spent his full 3 hours trying to find the sludge villain. All Might is right next to the crowd of bystanders. "Maybe we should run?" asks one bystander as All Might catches himself on a pole as he glances at the mass destruction going on before his very eyes. "Come on, heroes. You've got this." One bystander tries to encourage the heroes. All Might still gripping onto the pole to steady himself. He gasps as he sees the sludge villain. He remembers when Izuku grabbed his leg earlier. Must have dropped him in the air. He grips his shirt tightly where his stomach scar is, feeling utterly pathetic for letting the villain escape. Back with Izuku. Izuku sadly mopes along the sidewalk, his notebook open as he flips through the pages of his notebook, replaying memories in his head. As he flips to the page with All Might's signature, he remembers what All Might had told him on the rooftop about his dreams not being attainable. He closes his notebook and looks at the cover of it. Izuku sighs, his eyes tearing up a bit. Even All Might said it. A hero needs a quirk. Izuku sniffs and wipes his nose. Not wanting cry and be weak when he should have known what was gonna happen. Suddenly, Izuku hears the same explosion from earlier but this time, way closer. Izuku lets out a soft gasp and looks across the street, slowly turning to face the shopping district across from him. The red light on the street crossing light turned green and he found himself walking across the street to see the villain attack. He joins the crowd of bystanders. He starts trying to look over the crowd to see better and then his eyes widen and he gasps as he sees that the villain is the same villain who attacked him earlier. He begins to question himself because he could have sworn All Might had captured him. Izuku suddenly remembers when he had grabbed onto All Might's leg. He didn't remember seeing the bottle with him while they were on the roof together. He starts to blame himself because if All Might accidentally dropped the villain, it has to be his fault, right? He feels guilty. Why aren't the heroes doing anything? A civilian asked another. It looks like they've met their match. The other civilian replies. Plus, the villain captured a kid. Things aren't looking good for him. Izuku was secretly listening to the conversation and he gasps when he realizes the villain has another hostage. He covers his mouth in shock, wondering how the hostage is holding up being suffocated by the villain like that. Isn't that the villain All Might was chasing earlier? A civilian asked. What? All Might? No way, he lost. Where is he? Another civilian asked in shock. Well, can someone call him or something? A woman asked. Seriously? Why hasn't he shown up to help the heroes? The other civilian replied. All Might groans, feeling utterly helpless while Izuku covers his own mouth in shock, feeling guilty. All Might's grip tightens on his own shirt. All Might then tightens his grip on the pole he's steadying himself on, feeling disgraceful for not being able to help right now. All Might starts to doubt his role as a hero and Izuku tries to have encouraging thoughts. The sludge villain growls as he keeps his grip on Bakugo. Izuku's eyes widen in absolute shock when he recognizes the hostage. Izuku gasps and drops his notebook, suddenly losing control of his own body. MD starts running into the chaos headfirst. All Might's eyes widen in shock and the heroes are stunned. Death Arms reaches out in a panic. No, you idiot. Stop. You're gonna get yourself killed. The sludge villain becomes annoyed. Not this brat again. Bakugo looks up and notices Izuku running towards him. Izuku wants to stop trying to run but he can't and he wonders what he's even doing right now. You're toast, kid. The sludge villain shouts and reels his arm back, ready to launch an attack as Izuku runs through fire and flame to get to Bakugo. He doesn't even know what to do but then he remembers page 25 from his hero analysis notebook. The sludge villain looks confused for a second as Izuku quickly grabs onto his backpack. Then, Izuku hurls his backpack at the sludge villain. "Take this." Izuku shouts as the backpack hits the sludge villain in the eye, catching the villain off guard, causing him to loosen his hold on Bakugo, allowing Bakugo the ability to gasp for breath. Izuku finally reaches Bakugo and the sludge villain. "Kaken!" he shouts as he lunges at Bakugo, clawing at the sludge with all his might. "What the hell? Why are you here?" Bakugo asks. "I dunno," Izuku exclaims in a panicked frenzy as he continues to try and free Bakugo to no avail. "My legs. They just started moving." Izuku continues to claw and claw at the sludge villain's fluid-like body. Izuku is overcome by flashbacks and then, he comes to a conclusion. Maybe the look on Bakugo's face made Izuku act without thinking. Izuku smiles with an expression of tears and worry on his face. "Kaken, I couldn't just stand there and watch you die." Izuku explains. All Might grunts, feeling even worse because Izuku ran out to try and help even though he was quirkless. It strikes a chord in him. "Get the hell off me." Bakugo shouts out to the sludge villain. All Might knows he has to do something to save both Izuku and Bakugo. He slowly starts transforming into his buff form. "Just a little bit longer, kid. And I'm done playing with you." The sludge villain yells in anger as he launches an attack directed at Izuku. The heroes try to rush to save Izuku. "Save the boy." Death Arms shouts out. "This thing'll kill him." The sludge villain lands his hit and an explosion courses through the shopping district, smoke everywhere around Izuku. Izuku trembles in fear and keeps his arm up on instinct to try and save himself from the blow. Suddenly, All Might's voice reminds Izuku that everything's okay. All Might is here. Izuku looks up at the sound of the voice just to see All Might blocking the blow from hitting Izuku. "I really am pathetic," All Might says before Izuku looks up. "All Might?" But Izuku stutters in confusion. "Didn't All Might use up his limit? I told you the traits that make a great champion. But I see now that I wasn't living up to my own ideals," he says as he frees his arm from the sludge with great strength. Izuku watches on in awe. Bakugo, all sweaty, also sees All Might. All Might grabs Bakugo's arm. Pros are always risking their lives. That's the true test of a hero. All Might says while BLD spews from his mouth, reeling his arm back for a smash. "Demen you, All Might?" The villain shouts in rage and aims an attack. "Detroit. Smash." All Might shouts as he punches the villain with raw strength, freeing Bakugo at the same time since he had a grip on his arm to keep from having Bakugo get blown away by the air pressure. The sludge villain explodes into a million pieces again and Mount Lady grunts slightly, trying to keep the nearby civilians from getting blown away by putting her gigantic arms around them to protect them, her hair blowing wildly in the wind. The heroes grunt as well, trying to keep their feet on the ground. The air swirls around wildly, similar to that of a tornado but not quite. Soon, the air swirl disappears. All Might obviously tired now, steam emanating from his fist. The heroes look on in shock and then it starts to rain. "It's raining," a civilian acknowledged. "Don't tell me all that wind just now was..." A woman trails off. "Look at the clouds. They're moving." Another civilian noticed. "Holy CRP. Death Arms mutters. "He changed the weather," he says as All Might wipes his mouth. All Might stands up straight and all of the civilians smile joyously. "Did that really just happen?" a civilian asks. The crowd starts cheering. "He changed the weather with a single punch like it was nothing. All Might saved the day again. He's amazing." All Might raises a victorious fist and stumbles back slightly. The crowd cheers even more, knowing All Might has officially won this battle. He glances back at Izuku while Izuku lay on the ground, probably fainted. After that, the heroes collected all the scattered mounds of sludge and the villain went into police custody where he belonged. Afterwards, Izuku glanced at All Might, filled with shame as the heroes berated him. "You moron. Do you have a death wish?" Kamui asks. "There was absolutely no reason for you to put yourself in danger like that." Death Arms says in irritation. "I got chewed out by the heroes big time while Kaken was praised for his bravery. Man, you're tough, kid. And that quirk is something else." The weird bird beak face mask man hero said. When you want to go pro, head over to my agency first. I'd love for you to be my sidekick while you're training. While the hero praises him, Bakugo glares at Izuku in the distance as Izuku continues to get berated. Bakugo and All Might's face are on the news. Bakugo has become pretty famous now. I wanted to apologize to All Might, but he was swarmed by interviewers. I didn't want to interrupt. Izuku walks along the sidewalk, heading home for the day. I can always try to send a message through his website when I get home. Suddenly, Izuku hears Bakugo's voice call out behind him, snapping him out of his thoughts. Deku! Bakugo calls out. Izuku turns around to see Bakugo running towards him. Kaken? Izuku asks. Once Bakugo gets into a good enough distance radius from Izuku, he stops and starts for air. He trembles and clenches his fists. Listen. I would never ask for a weakling like you to help me. Don, think you can look down on me? Got that? I was fine by myself. You're just a quirkless failure who won. To even count as a rent-a-cop. You didn't help me. You did nothing. Don't forget that. Bakugo turns around and starts storming off. I don't owe you anything. Bakugo leaves Izuku confused. Izuku does agree with Bakugo though. He really didn't do much to help anyway. At least that's what he thinks. Izuku looks down at the ground before turning around to continue walking back home for the day. Suddenly, All Might jumps from around a corner fast, startling Izuku, and he screams. I am here. All Might shouts out. All Might. Where did you come from? Izuku asks. Izuku looks around thoughtfully. How'd you get rid of all those reporters? All Might just laughs heroically. I stand for justice. Not sound bites. All Might starts flexing his muscles. Because I am All Me Dash. He gets cut off as he suddenly changes back into his skeletal form, spitting out BLD from the transformation. Izuku screams in shock. All Might starts coughing before wiping his mouth and looking at Izuku. Young man. I came here to thank you, and also to discuss your question from earlier. All Might explains. Izuku asks in confusion. If you hadn't told me about your life, if you hadn't run into that fight, I would have been a worthless bystander watching from the crowd. So, thanks. All Might continues. It was my fault he was there to begin with. I got in the way of your strong work. I wasted your energy. And not to mention your time, Izuku explains, sadly. I'm not done. All Might replies. You told me you didn't have a power. So, when I saw this timid quirkless boy try to save a life, it inspired me to act too. Izuku gasps and looks up at All Might. There are stories. About every hero. How they became great. Most have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. All Might explained. Almost on their own. Izuku's eyes sparkled at hearing that. Izuku quickly looks down, trying to hide the tears threatening to form. Izuku sniffed. For some reason, I remembered my mother's words in that moment. He remembers when his mom tried to apologize to him. Izuku gripped his shirt collar tightly, whimpering, trying not to start crying despite the tears already in his eyes. And today, that's what happened to you. All Might continued. Izuku slowly hunched over, gripping his shirt collar tightly, tears forming in his eyes and going down his face, dripping once they reached the tip of his nose. Izuku continues to whimper and sob. You never told me. The thing I wanted you to say, the words I needed to hear. Izuku falls to his knees sobbing. Young man. You too can become a hero. All Might finishes. Izuku starts sobbing without control. Dreams can become reality. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention that this is the story of how I became the world's greatest hero. The world's most popular hero, All Might. Age, unknown. Quirk, unidentified. He broke onto the hero scene and was an immediate hit thanks to his abilities. Ever since he appeared, crime rates have drastically decreased. His very existence, a deterrent for many would-be villains. The world's a safer place. They don't just call him the symbol of peace. It's what he is. And this pillar of justice said to me, young man, you too can become a hero. Izuku starts thinking about all the mean things people have said to him just because he wanted so badly to be a hero one day. I needed someone to tell me that. And then, the person I admire most in the world did. Honestly, part of me never thought I'd hear those words. Much less from him. All Might spreads his arms out. I deem you worthy of my power. My quirk is yours to inherit. Izuku slowly looks up, tears in his eyes and snot running down his nose. He tilts his head to the side, utterly confused. Inherit what? Izuku asked, confused. All Might just starts laughing at Izuku's reaction. You should see your face right now. Don't worry. All Might says as he starts to approach Izuku. I'm not gonna force this thing on you. All Might tries to reassure him as he stops directly in front of Izuku, who's still on his hands and knees. He points a finger at Izuku. Listen well, young man. This is your choice. Do you want to accept my awesome power or not? All Might asks, BLD spewing from his mouth as he yells his question. Izuku is still confused as he stares up at All Might. All Might wipes the BLD from his mouth. There are a couple things you should know about my abilities. All Might says. Journalists always guess my quirk as super strength or some kind of invulnerability. When they ask in interviews, I always make a joke and dodge the question. That's because the world needs to believe that their symbol of peace is just a natural-born hero like any of them. But I'm not. There's nothing natural about my ability. All Might explains as he holds his hands behind his head and then extends them out above himself and then down, stretched out on each side. I wasn't born with this power. It's a sacred torch that was passed down to me from someone else. Izuku's eyes are wide as he listens. Someone gave you this quirk? No way. All Might chuckles. Yeah, wait. And you're next. I can give you my abilities. All Might says, his shirt blowing in the wind. Hold on. This a lot to process. Izuku exclaims before muttering to himself. It's true. There's a lot of debate about what your quirk actually is. No one's ever figured it out. It's one of the world's greatest mysteries. People are constantly talking about it online. But, well, the idea of passing on a quirk or inheriting it, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I've never heard anything like that before. Powers are supposed to be unique to each individual. I mean, since the first superpower, no one's ever been able to just give someone else their power like a present. That's crazy. If this is true, it would cause use to rethink everything we know about quirks. All bets are off the table. All Might looks at Izuku like he's crazy. I think you're overthinking this whole inheriting thing, Izuku continues to mutter, and All Might has enough. Stop nerding out. Izuku gets startled out of his constant train of thought by the sudden yelling. You'll have to adjust your reality and accept this new truth. All Might says with his arms spread out. I can transfer my quirk to someone else. He says as he only his hand out in front of himself. And that's just one facet of my secret abilities. The true name of my power is One for All. One for all, Izuku repeats. Yes. All Might replies. One person improves the power, then hands it off to another person. It continues to grow as it's passed along. It is this cultivated power that allows me to save those who are in need of a hero. The truth behind my strength. But why would you choose to give me a gift like that? What if I can't live up to it? Izuku asks, still on his knees. I was on a long hunt for a worthy successor. And then, I watched you jump into action while the rest of us stood idly by. You may just be a quirkless fanboy, but you tried to save that kid. You acted like a hero. All Might explains. Izuku starts to tear up again. Seriously. You gotta stop crying so much if you want my quirk. Come on, All Might says with a chuckle. Izuku clutches his leg tightly. He said so much to encourage me. He even told me the secret behind his powers. Is this what I've been waiting for all these years? Izuku wipes the tears from his eyes. How can he possibly turn down the chance to receive a quirk and become a hero? He slowly gets up off the ground with newfound confidence. Okay, I'll do it. Izuku speaks with determination. No reluctance. That's exactly how I figured you'd respond. But it wasn't that simple. Receiving All Might's power seemed to be no easy task, as I'd soon find out. 2 days later, at Dagobah Beach, Izuku pulls HRD on a rope, trying to move a fridge while All Might sits on top of the fridge, which adds a whole lot more weight than just the fridge alone. It's pretty comfy up on this fridge. All Might says. How you doing down there? All Might asks what Izuku is obviously struggling to get it to move even a centimeter. Izuku gives up and falls to the ground. People move these every day, you know? And most of them don't even have any super strength. Izuku slowly turns over to look at All Might up on the fridge. Well, yeah, but there's an extra 600 with you sitting on top of it. Nah, I've lost weight, so I'm down to 560 these days. In this form at least, All Might responds. Izuku sighs with relief. Great, much better. Why do you have me dragging trash across the beach anyway? All Might laughs. Take a look at yourself. You're not ready for my power. All Might says, taking out his phone and snapping a few pics of Izuku. Izuku gasps in a panic. But I thought you said that I was worthy. Izuku screams into the ground. All Might hops off the fridge with his phone out and approaches Izuku. I'm talking about your weak body. Izuku looks at him with an awkward face. My quirk, one for all, is a whole lot to handle. The combined physical abilities from everyone who's ever used it creates a hurricane of pure force. An unprepared body can't fully inherit it. All Might explains. Your arms and legs would shoot off if you tried to? Izuku, now filled with worry, asks. Seriously, and then he shivers with the uncomfortable image plastered in his mind. So, this whole trash thing is really some kind of hardcore gym workout. You're my trainer. Izuku says before looking back at All Might, who gives him a thumbs up. You got it. But there's another reason too. I did a little online research yesterday. All Might says as he starts to approach the fridge again. He stops right in front of the fridge. Turns out this part of the beach used to be appealing, but it's been a total mess for the last few years. All Might knocks once on the fridge and leaves a decent-sized dent in it. That's right. Izuku agrees as he looks around. Because of the ocean currents, anything that's dropped in the water ends up here. People take advantage of that when they're illegally dumping their trash. Now, all the locals avoid this place. All Might circles the fridge. Heroes these days are all about showing off and capturing flashy villains. All Might says as he sets his hand atop the fridge. Things were different before quirks. Service is what mattered. Back then, heroes were those who helped the community. Even if it was kinda boring. All Might spoke as he slowly started crushing the fridge to the ground, pieces flying off in the process and wind blowing everywhere from the force. You will reform the coastline for this entire section of the beach. That is your first step, young man, towards being a hero. All this? Izuku questions as he looks around with worry. But there's so much. That's impossible. All Might stands up straight. Young Midoriya, you want to go to you. But Izuku turns back to All Might. Well, yeah, of course. You went there. So it must be the best school around, right? It's a long shot. But still, I'm gonna shoot for the moon. You? Izuku says with an expression of admiration. You've got a lot of spirit, fanboy. All Might says. Izuku smiles. But, as I mentioned before, Hero ing isn't easy to do without a quirk. It's not fair, but that's the reality. And UA is the hardest hero course to get into. So, that means that I have to prepare my body really fast. UA's exam is in 10 months. Izuku exclaims. Not to worry, kid. All Might said as he held a few papers. I've got you covered. With the help of my handy aim to pass, American Dream Plan. Izuku looks at the work schedule. Follow this to the letter and the beach will be cleaned up just in time. All Might said. I also detailed every other aspect of your life while I was at it. Izuku squints his eyes as he schemes through the schedule. Even my sleep is scheduled. All Might cups his mouth and whispers in Izuku's ear. If I'm being honest, this is going to be super strong. Think you're up for it? All Might asked. Izuku smiled with nervous confidence. Yeah, sure I am. I have to work way harder than anyone else to get in. So, what choice do I have, right? Izuku asked. Just like that, I began 10 months of absolute hell. Izuku pulled on lockers. Come on, put your back into it, Midoriya. It's not gonna move itself. All Might tried to encourage him. Izuku ran with tires on his shoulders. I'm using different muscle groups depending on the size and shape of the trash I'm hauling. Let's go. Let's go. The clock is ticking and 10 months will be over before you know it. All Might shouted words of encouragement. Izuku ended up tripping and falling, dirtying his face as he quickly gets up and starts running with the tire again. Don't you give up. It's time to go beyond. All Might shouted to Izuku. At Alder Middle School, one day. So, you see, with the appearance of quirks, the Building Standards Act had to be in place. The teacher's words trailed off as he kept speaking. Izuku was so tired from all that training. He was basically zoning out in class. Izuku wants to finish cleaning the beach up about a week before the UA entrance exams. He looks at his notebook with determination and he gets his pencil. He starts thinking and then he starts thinking out loud. That gives me about 98 days of actual training even at my most efficient. I can get in around 5 hours every morning and night, so that's 490 hours. Also, I need to make sure I'm hitting every muscle group, which means I need to pay attention to the type of work I'm doing on the beach every day. The entire class plus the teachers start staring at him as he accidentally expresses his thoughts out loud without realizing it. I could start sneaking extra workouts and lifting weights on my own, I suppose. That would help me focus my workouts and isolate specific muscles, but it'll cost me time. Lots of it. I'll have to cut back on the hours of sleep All Might scheduled for me, but independent training could help me catch up a little more. Excellent. Suddenly, he gets snapped out of his train of thought because his teacher stretches his hand out and bopped him upside the head. Hey, Midoriya. His teacher calls out and Izuku covers his mouth in embarrassment. I know you had a run-in with a villain, but pull yourself together, kid. If you really want to get into you might actually have to know something. Some kids giggle at Izuku. You hear him. One girl says to another student. Another calls him an idiot. Bakugo rests his head on his hand and just stares out the window, looking a little irritated. At Dagobah Beach, Izuku runs down the stairs to meet back up with All Might to continue his training. Izuku tries to push a pile of big tires. Izuku struggles and his feet slide in the sand as All Might watches him. Izuku runs across the beach, gets his report card and shows it to Inko, eats salads and other healthy foods, stays up till 2 in the morning taking notes, and then gets up early in the morning after basically pulling an all-nighter just to train some more with All Might, pushing vaults and other random stuff, and then he lifts weights and does push-ups, nearly falls asleep in class, eats food like he hasn't eaten in 2 weeks, while his mom watches him in surprise, goes out on midnight jogs and then goes to train the next day and out of breath before puking, leaving All Might confused. Then he struggles to move an old rusty truck, swims in the water at the beach while All Might gets ambushed by fangirls. Then he proceeds to go home and lift heavy weights after hellish training with All Might, goes to work training some more the next day, loading stuff in the back of a truck, takes random notes in class about God knows what, whether it be school notes or stuff about training while he's secretly doing hand exercises from under the table, and then he's forced to carry All Might on his back, and now this is where we are today. It's now the season of fall and orange leaves fall from the trees. Izuku runs while carrying a safe on his shoulder, suddenly feeling dizzy and seeing weird colors as everything feels like it's going in slow motion, almost like hallucinations, while All Might rides a scooter thing. Izuku suddenly falls to the ground and All Might stops, noticing. Hey kid, look alive now. You've only got 3 months left. What, are you gonna give up after all this work? Wanna flush it all down the toilet and take it easy? All Might asks as Izuku breathes heavily, laying face first on the ground. Izuku struggles to move because he's so weak and tired. All Might's eyes widen after he realizes what's going on. You're overworked. The Game to Pass, American Dream Plan was created with your body in mind. It was fine-tuned so your progress was swift but manageable. Which means you haven't been sticking to it. You're overdoing things. That's gonna have the opposite effect of what we want. Izuku, still breathing strong, says, I have to work harder or I won't stand a chance against the other applicants. I don't just want into you. I want to excel. What? To be like you. As Izuku struggles to move, he tries to at least lift his body up a little. All Might looks down at Izuku on the ground. I want to be the greatest hero in the world. Izuku shouts, looking at All Might with tears in his eyes. Until I've got what it takes to do that. All Might realizes just how much Izuku was thinking about his future. All Might turns back into his buff form. That fighting spirit's what I like about you, fanboy. It serves you well. All Might says as he lifts Izuku off the ground by his shirt. I do get your concerns. That said, now's not the time to go ahead and rush progress. Fear not. I can get you back on track. Leave it to this old man to adjust your plan. All Might decides. You're not an old man. All Might. Izuku rasps out. All Might laughs at Izuku's response. February 26. And suddenly, it was the morning of the exam. All Might gets out of his car and walks up to the beach. Izuku lets out a battle cry at the top of his lungs. All Might looks up and sees Izuku standing on the top of a big pile of trash. Izuku is covered in sweat. As All Might goes up the stairs to overlook the beach, he sees that it's spotless. Hey, holy CRP kid. You even cleaned up outside the area I told you to. Seriously, there's not a speck of trash left on this beach. Only a few minutes to spare. But you exceeded my expectations. Super crap. He says as he turns into his buff form. Izuku sways on top of the giant pile of trash before collapsing with All Might catching him. Excellent work. All Might praises Izuku as Izuku lay in his arms, still conscious, thankfully, just exhausted. Izuku smiles weakly. I finished everything, he says. All Might. I did it. Do you think I'm ready now? Izuku asks. Yeah, you did good, kid. All Might says. I gotta say, I'm impressed. He sets Izuku back down on the ground. I knew you had it in you, but this is beyond. Look at this. All Might tells Izuku as he holds up his phone with a picture of Izuku from 10 months ago. Izuku stutters out. It's you crying 10 months ago. Look how far you've come. Such improvement. All Might says as he scans Izuku's now buff body. There's still a long road ahead of you before you can inherit my full power set. But it's starting to look like you can do it. Izuku, doubtful of himself and his capabilities, asks with a weak smile, do I deserve this? Are you sure? All Might asks, confused on why Izuku's asking in the first place. You put so much time and energy into helping me. How did I end up so lucky? Izuku asks, tears streaming down his face now. All Might laughs in response. Are you really worried about that after all these months? He pats Izuku's back. It was your strong work that did this, not mine. Now, for your reward, Izuku Midoriya. Yes, sir. Izuku responded. All Might plucks out a strand of hair. Someone told me this once. There's a difference between being lucky and deserving. One's an accident, the other, a reward. Never get the two confused. Izuku gasps and looks up at All Might. Take that to heart, young man. This gift, you earned it with your own valiant efforts. Izuku puts on a face of determination as he prepares to take the gift. And so, I held out my weak, quirkless hands and grabbed the future. All Might held out a strand of his blonde hair. Eat this. Izuku's eyes widen, stunned. To inherit my power, you've got to swallow some of my DNA. That's how it works. All Might claimed. This isn't exactly how I imagined it, Izuku exclaims. Come on, there's no time. All Might exclaims impatiently. You'll be late for the exams. All Might pressures Izuku and Izuku yelps, obviously not wanting to eat hair. 8:40 a.m. at you. A high school. The applicants walked through the entrance to you. In preparation for the exams. Izuku runs through the entrance. I made it just in time, he says as after he catches his breath, starts walking down the pathway towards the front door of the hero school. I was so worried about missing the exams that I didn't have a chance to test out my new power. He wears a nervous look of determination on his face. Izuku thinks back to how he inherited his power before covering his mouth with a disgusted look on his face. I may have swallowed the hair, but I don't feel like anything great has happened to me yet, he says to himself. Stupid Deku, Bakugo calls out behind him. Izuku's eyes widen and he turns around and gasps. Kaken! Izuku shouts. Get out of my way now before I set you on fire, Bakugo threatens as he approaches Izuku to get to the entrance of you. Izuku quickly obeys and becomes extremely nervous. Good morning. He says nervously. Let's just both do our best out there. Good luck. He calms down when Bakugo is finally out of his vicinity. He turns around to look at Bakugo as he walks off. Some applicants acknowledge him and somehow still remember him from the villain attack 10 months ago. I think that's the kid who withstood the sludge villain. His name's Bakugo, right? Asks a random applicant. Yeah, he's the real deal. Another applicant replies. Ever since that day, Kaken's been taking it easier on me. Izuku sighs as Bakugo walks off. I guess I was just scared out of habit, Izuku mutters, then quickly shakes his head to ward off the negative thoughts and replace them with positive thoughts. He's not defenseless anymore, he has nothing to fear. All he has to do is remember all the strong work he's put in to get to this very moment. His legs shake with anxiety. He's actually going to be a hero. Suddenly, he trips on his own feet. He's gonna be a hero or die apparently. Suddenly, something stops his fall and he gasps as he suddenly realizes he's floating. Hey, are you okay? Achiko Uraraka asks. Izuku yelps and suddenly starts thrashing in the air, wanting to get back to solid ground already. Achiko helps him to his feet and he's now on the ground again. He looks at Achiko. I'm sorry I didn't ask first, but I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you. She smiles. Izuku just stares at her like, what the F? Isn't this like way nerve-wracking? She asks. Izuku suddenly starts blushing with nervousness and embarrassment and he stutters, fidgeting too. Izuku can't find the right words to say at this moment. Well, guess I'll see you around. Achiko says, still smiling slightly before she walks off, ready to find her a seat inside. Izuku stands there stunned before he smiles, feeling proud of himself for absolutely no reason. He just talked to a girl for the first time. Even though he didn't actually talk. Achiko did all the talking while he just stood there like an idiot. Izuku chuckles nervously as he stares ahead at the giant doors to the school. Inside you. Izuku sits in the massive exam orientation room. What's up, you? A candidates. Present Mike asks the applicants. Thanks for tuning in to me, your school DJ. Come on and let me hear ya. He cups his hand over his ear as if expecting a reply but being met with silence instead. Present Mike shakes nervously. Keeping it mellow. That's fine. I'll skip straight to the main show. Let's talk about how this practical exam's gonna go down. Okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Present Mike waits for an answer from the crowd but is again met with silence. Izuku starts to fanboy over Present Mike. Oh my goodness, it's the voice hero, Present Mike. So cool. I listen to his radio show every day of the week. It's so crazy nuts that all the teachers are pro-heroes. Bakugo, who sits next to him, annoyed, asks, will you shut up? Like your application says, today, you rockin' boys and girls will be out there conducting 10-minute mock battles in super hip urban settings. Gird your loins, my friends. After I drop the mic here, you guys will head over to your specified battle center. Sound good? Present Mike asks the applicants again only to be met by silence for the third time. Okay. Izuku and Bakugo both look at the paper with their battle centers on it. I see. They're splitting us up so we can't work with any of our friends. Bakugo examines. Yeah, you're right. Our examinee numbers are one after the other but we're assigned to different battle centers. Izuku also examines. Get your eyes off my card, Bakugo grumbles, startling Izuku. Demon. I was really looking forward to crushing you, Izuku chuckles nervously. Present Mike decides to continue explaining the rules. Okay, let's check out your targets. There are 3 types of foe villains in every battle center. You'll earn points based on their level of difficulty. So, you better choose wisely. Your goal in this trial is to use your quirk to raise your score by shredding these foe villains like a mid-song guitar solo. But check it. Make sure you're keeping things heroic. Attacking other examinees is a no-no, you dig? Suddenly, Tenya Ida stands up with his hand raised to ask a question. Excuse me, sir, but I have a question. Present Mike points at him, giving him permission to ask away. Hit me. A spotlight forms on Ida. You've listed 4 types of villains, not 3. He says as he points to a picture on his pamphlet. With all respect, If this is an error on official U. Materials, it is shameful. We are exemplary students. He states as he puts the paper down at his side. We expect the best from Japan's most notable school. A mistake such as this won't do. He turns to point at Izuku. Additionally, you with the unkempt hair. You've been muttering this entire time, Ida states, bringing Izuku into the spotlight, basically embarrassing him. Stop that, Ida says with a glare. If you can't bother to take this seriously, leave. You're distracting the rest of us. Izuku covers his mouth in embarrassment. Sorry, he apologizes, clearly embarrassed for being brought out in the spotlight like that. Students nearby laugh at him for this embarrassment. All right. Present Mike says, getting ready to answer Ida's question. Examinee number 7111, thanks for calling with your request. The fourth villain type is worth 0 points. This guy's just an obstacle we'll be throwing your way. There's one in every battle center. Think of it as a hurdle you should try to avoid. It's not that it can't be beaten, but there's kinda no point. I recommend my listeners to try and ignore and focus on the ones topping the charts. Ida bows in gratitude. Thank you very much, please continue. Ida says before sitting back down. Oh, I get it. They're kinda like traps you have to get by in games. One applicant says. The whole thing's like a video game. Another applicant says. That's all I got for you today. Present Mike announces. I'll sign off with a little present. A sample of our school motto. As General Napoleon Bonaparte once laid down, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. Now, that's a tasty soundbite. You ready to go beyond? Let's hear a plus ultra. Izuku smiles with nervous determination. Good luck. Present Mike encourages. Hope you practiced more than hitting just books. You a high, Battle Center B. Well, this is it. Now it's time to put that 10 grueling months of training to the test. Time to give it his all so he can pass this. He will become a hero no matter what. He trembles with absolute anxiety and nervousness. He'll do this just like he always dreamed. He'll never give and he'll never let himself down. He slaps himself in the face to try and get himself to calm down. He's go this. The hallowed grounds of you. The school with the best hero training course in the world, the place every kid wants to go. Sure, there are similar programs out there, but they don't hold a candle to you. A's, which is why it's almost impossible to get in. The school's alumni list is a who's who of idols. All Might, the most famous pro there is. The legendary peacekeeper with the most wins under his belt. The fiery hero, Endeavor. Not to mention the Demniclad, award-winning Marvel, Best Jeanist. Graduating from U. A is basically a requirement if you want to be a great hero. And so, I held my head high and marched towards the entrance exams. This was it, the first step towards achieving my dream of becoming a pro. The examinees gasp as they look at how big the entrance is to their battle center. This is nuts, exclaimed one applicant. It's like a whole city, said another. Can you imagine how much it costs to build this? Another applicant asked. UA is amazing, replied another. Izuku remembers all of the rules Present Mike had gone over and gulps with nervousness. Okay, this is it. A mock battle. Izuku says as he looks around at the other applicants. How come none of these guys seem nervous at all? Izuku asks himself. Are they that confident? Some of them even have special gear. He says as he continues to look around. Then, he spots Achiko in the distance who's trying to focus and calm herself for the battle. Hey, it's her. The nice girl I met at the school gates. The one who kept me from falling. I should probably thank her for helping me back there. He starts to slowly and cautiously approach her but is stopped by a sudden hand on his shoulder. He turns around and sees Ida. He yelps when he sees him. She looks like she's trying to focus on the trials ahead. Ida says as he looks at Achiko in the distance before glancing back down at Izuku. What are you going to do? Distract her and ruin her chances to succeed. Ida asks. Izuku is quick to try and defend himself. No. Of course not. He suddenly gets cut off by another applicant. Hey there. That's the guy who almost bit it out earlier. He practically wet himself in the lecture hall. The applicant says. Yuga Aoyama glances at him from a distance as the students start making fun of him. Dude, what a loser. A guy with candy cane-looking hair says. But one less rival to worry about, I guess. He's out, all the applicants say in unison. Izuku stands there in shame as Ida has his arms crossed in front of him, staring Izuku down. Izuku already know everybody is looking down on him and thinking he'll fail. Right, let's start. Present Mike shouts from a pillar. Izuku and everybody else looks up at Present Mike. Get moving. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run, run, run. You're wasting airtime here. Izuku stands there staring at Present Mike for a second and looks around and realizes everybody has disappeared. He gasps and then he realizes everybody is already running to get started defeating foe villains for points. He's already behind and the exam just started. Sirpi, he says as he starts running after everyone to get through the giant gates to the city. Hey, wait up. Save some villains for me. He calls out, running as fast as he can. Izuku needs to calm down. This is fine, he can catch up. He's sure of it. After all, he's no longer quirkless. He has All Might's power. He gulps. Back at Dagoba Beach a few hours ago. Izuku swallows the hair. Good, you swallowed it, yes? All Might asks. Yeah, but I don't feel like anything's different yet. Izuku replies. All Might laughs. Well, of course not. Your body has to process the hair first. All Might explains. It should kick in after 2, maybe 3 hours. Izuku sighs. My stomach's in knots. And I need to shower and eat something before the exam. Izuku says as he puts his backpack on. You may have molded your body into a proper vessel, but you did it in a hurry, so be cautious. You haven't even taken it for a test drive yet. The physical backlash of one for all can be intense. All Might explains. Izuku says as he glances at All Might. There's no time to go into the fine details, but... All Might glances at Izuku. Take note. You've got to prepare yourself before using this quirk. So, I want you to clench your butt cheeks and yell this from the depths of your heart. Ash back at you. Ahai, Battle Center B. Izuku runs through the foe city, recalling the words that All Might said before he sent him off to prepare. Suddenly, a foe villain jumps out in front of him, smashing a few pieces of a wall and picking up lots of dust. Izuku skids to a stop. Wadash. A one-pointer. The 1 point looks up and glances Izuku. Target acquired. Commencing attack. It says as it starts speeding up its wheels to get to Izuku. Izuku knows he has to dodge but he's frozen. He can't move. His body won't listen to him. He's starting to think he's gonna die, but that thought was short-lived as Aoyama shoots his naval laser at the villain, destroying it instantly. Got him. Izuku gasps in shock when he sees Aoyama. A laser? Merci beaucoup. We make a great team with you as my decoy. Alright, I doubt I'll be seeing too much of you in the future. Aoyama says as he starts running off to find more villains. Adieu. What did he mean by that? Izuku asks himself. He snapped out of his thoughts as Present Mike calls out the remaining time. 6 minutes and 2 seconds left. Present Mike shouts. Izuku panics and starts running through the city again to try and find another villain he could try to take down. He has yet to make any points yet. Izuku finds himself running through an alley and what he sees and hears startles him once he reaches the other side. Izuku looks around amongst the wreckage of defeated foe villains and then he notices Achiko. It's her. Achiko touches a few foe villains with her fingertips and they start floating. She presses the tips of her fingers together, feeling the strain of overusing her quirk. Release. She says and the foe villains drop from the sky, smashing to bits. Once she releases her quirk, she turns back around to where the foe villains dropped with a worried expression on her face. Okay, that should be at least 28 points. Achiko says as she starts running again. Izuku gasps at the amount of points she already has. Ida's engine calves propel him forward through the streets and he launches himself in the other with his mufflers and kicks a foe villain in the head, defeating it. That puts me at 45. Izuku is even more shocked at that amount than Achiko. Another applicant says, 33 for me. Hey, back off. That one's mine. Shouts another applicant. First come, first serve. Another applicant replies. Izuku tears up and starts to panic. At this rate, Izuku will fail because there will be no more enemies left. In the interrogation room where the teachers watch the students. Clearly the examinees have no idea how many villains are present or their locations. Says Principal Nizu. They have limited time, must cover a vast area, and hunt down every last target. Some use information gathering abilities to plan out strategies. The principal says as Mizo Shoji appears on the security camera screen with his dupli arms present, while others rely on speed to pull ahead of their peers. He says as Ida shows on the security camera, soaring through the air with his engines. Of course, remaining calm under pressure can be a huge advantage. He says as Oyama appears on screen, as can pure power and combat ability. He continues as Bakugo appears on screen. The most successful students use a combination of all these tactics. They're the ones who rack up the highest scores. I'd say this year's group looks promising. Says one teacher. Well, there's still plenty of time before it's over. Says another teacher as they press a red button. The real test has yet to come. Let's see how they react. Back at Battle Center B. A loud rumbling sound is heard and dust is blown. The applicant mutters and Achiko uncovers her mouth with a worried, nauseous look on her face as she glances over to see what that noise was. She gasps as she stares at the giant faux villain with the other applicants and Ida. Izuku looks around anxiously before a large shadow looms over him and the giant faux villain towers over him and the buildings. The faux villain smashes the roof of a building with pure strength. Izuku remembers about the zero-pointer. Isn't this a little extreme? The faux villain punches the ground, blowing up dirt and dust everywhere as the applicants scream in a panic as they start running away from the massive villain. Izuku screams as well as he stands there frozen. He looks up at the robot with fear. He falls on his butt in fear. A true person's character is revealed when they're faced with danger. Izuku sits there trembling with fear as Ida runs past him, staring. Izuku quickly turns over and tries to scramble away. This is a disaster. I gotta go and fight some smaller villains. Sirbi. He has tears in his eyes as his body doesn't move anywhere. I'm still at 0 points? He exclaims. Less than 2 minutes remaining. Present Mike calls out. Izuku looks up at the sky in fear. What? 2 minutes. Izuku starts to panic. All that training for 10 grueling months will go to waste. Suddenly, Izuku hears a pained voice called out. Oh! Achiko cries out, her legs stuck under debris. Izuku freezes as he hears the voice and he turns around to see her trapped in the distance as the faux villain rapidly approaches. She could get run over. Achiko struggles to get up, still feeling nauseous. His eyes widen by a long shot as he remembers how nice she was to him when they first met. Izuku quickly gets up and starts running towards Achiko. There are no combat points rewarded for taking on the huge villain, but there is opportunity. All Might's voice trailed off as Izuku's new quirk activates in his legs. A chance to shine. All Might continues. Izuku's new quirk propels him high into the air. Achiko watches on in shock as a rush of air blows her brown hair. To show what you're really made of? All Might continues. Izuku prepares his fist for a smash as One for All courses through his arms and legs. The force of One for All coursing through his arms ends up ripping his sleeves off. Izuku soars high into the air with One for All activated as he gets closer to the head of the faux villain. Remembers what All Might said to him. So, clench your butt cheeks, kid. And yell this from the depths of your heart. Izuku rapidly approaches the zero-pointer with an expression of anger on his face. Smash! Izuku shouts out, preparing to punch the faux villain. His fist connects with the metal face of the robotic villain and a massive dent appears on the face. The villain falls backwards before exploding. Achiko looks on in astonishment and so does Ida and the other applicants. That's right. All Might says with a smile from the examination room. Show who you are. Embody what it means to be a hero. Principal Nizu cheers. Nothing is nobler than self-sacrifice. Kinda like when tried to save Kaken. I moved without thinking. But now I have a quirk. Real power. 1 minute left. Present Mike announces. Izuku gasps and then he starts to fall. That's when panic set in. He didn't have time to plan this out. He screams as he starts descending from the sky. He jumped using One for All. So, maybe he can get down with it. Just like All Might? Landing should be a piece of cake, right? He looks behind him and yelps when he realizes his legs are broken and so is one of his arms. All Might warned him about this. He should have listened. He can barely contain this power even after 10 months of training. He got way ahead of himself when he tried to take down that zero-pointer faux villain. Izuku tries to come up with some sort of plan for landing. Maybe he should use a Detroit Smash. It's the only chance he has if he's gonna live. Even if he lives though, he still have 0 points. He readies his fist for the impact. He screams as he approaches the ground rapidly. Suddenly, he gets slapped in the face by Ochako. Izuku suddenly finds himself floating just a couple feet above the ground. Ochako struggles but then puts her fingers together. And release. She says one final time before she becomes exhausted. Izuku plops onto the ground unharmed by the fall at least. Suddenly, her eyes widen drastically as she covers her mouth, being overcome by nausea, and then she pukes up rainbows. Izuku slowly looks up with tears in his eyes to see who saved him. The same girl stopped his fall again. He notices how exhausted Ochako seems to be now and notices she has no injuries as far as he can see. Izuku balls his fist up, and then he tries to crawl forward using his fist since the rest of his limbs are broken. I still have a chance to get at least 1 point before, and that's it. Time's up. Present mic announces. An alarm sounds afterwards. Ida looks at Izuku's injured body. In Bakugo's zone, he's smirking and wiping his mouth off, sweating, smoking emanating from his fist. Izuku starts to sob. Or at least that's what he thinks. Then he faints. Izuku lays there on the ground, face down while all the other applicants surround him in shock. Did you see that dude's attack? One applicant asks. I didn't think he had that kind of strength. Me neither, replied another. Looks like some kind of reinforcement type quirk, but there was something else. If he has such an amazing quirk, how come he didn't snag any points all day? Asked another. Maybe he was trying to trick all of us? Another replied. Joke's on him, there's no way he's passing with a 0 score like that. One applicant says. True, another agreed. But you gotta admit, that was a pretty amazing move. Ida listens in on the conversations. He realizes something. The applicants are missing the point. Did they not see what Izuku did? He glances at Ochako, who is unconscious on top of faux villain debris. Izuku sacrificed everything just to save Ochako. He must have known how much time was left and how many points he needed in order to pass, didn't he? He was putting everything on the line, yet he never hesitated to jump. If this wasn't an exam, then, of course, Ida would have done the same thing. Wait a second. The judges saw that, didn't they? Very nice, good work all around. Recovery Girl says as she walks through the debris with a cane and a hand full of gummies. You're heroes in my eyes, every one of you. Recovery Girl says as she hands some gummies to a random applicant nearby. Oh, thanks. The applicant replied. Yes, don't eat them all at once, okay? Recovery Girl said as she walked off. Thank you. The applicant replied back. That mademoiselle, she's the heart of you. Aoyama explains as Recovery Girl approaches Izuku. Oh my goodness. You were hurt this badly by your own quirk, Sonny? Recovery Girl asked out loud. It's almost as if Izuku's body isn't used to his quirk at all. Recovery Girl puckers up and the unconscious Izuku on the head. Gimme some sugar. What's she doing? An applicant with ginger hair and a blue bandana asked in confusion. You're watching a school nurse in action? Aoyama replied. Recovery Girl stands back up after giving Izuku the youthful heroin. Recovery Girl, Izuku's body starts glowing green as his body starts to heal and his arms and legs go back correctly. Her quirk is a trace awesome boost of healing power. She's the only reason I can hold these reckless exams. Look, she's saving him months of recovery time. Izuku finishes healing but he's still unconscious. Alright, he'll be fine now. Recovery Girl said. Anyone else injured? She asks. That night, It's dinner time and Inko is concerned for her son because Izuku is just randomly staring and smiling at a fish. Izuku. She tries to get his attention. Snap out of it. Izuku. Finally, after yelling, Izuku snapped out of his weird trance-like state. Why are you smiling at that fish? Should I be worried about you, honey? She asks, concerned. Oh, sorry, no. Izuku apologizes. I just spaced out for a minute. Inko replied, still concerned. After dinner, Izuku starts doing hand exercises, still thinking about the UA entrance exam. Izuku sighs, feeling upset. After the UA entrance exam, he wasn't able to get in touch with All Might. Inko hears his sigh and glances at him from behind while Izuku sits on the couch. I know. Waiting for the results is terrible. Inko replied, trying to lighten the mood. I know, Izuku responds. No matter what, I just want you to know that I'm proud of you and I think you're really cool, sweetie. Inko tries to encourage Izuku. Sure. Izuku replies coldly. I didn't tell my mom about All Might or his secret. I want him to continue being the symbol of peace for everyone, the #1 hero. Besides, he trusted me. So, I'll keep my mouth shut. Izuku picks up a weight and starts single-handedly lifting it. All Might, somehow, someway, you saw potential in me. But I failed. I let us both down so much. I'm sorry, but I'll keep trying. Inko suddenly scrambled into Izuku's bedroom. The letter, they came, Izuku. You got a letter. They're here. Your test results from UA. Inko said, frantically. Izuku looked at her like he really wasn't ready for this. Inko paced anxiously outside of Izuku's bedroom. Izuku sat silently in the dark confinement of his room as he stared down the envelope on his desk. After a few seconds, Izuku finally gained the confidence to open it and he ripped it open, a projector plopping onto his desk. Suddenly, Booyah! I am here as a projection now. All Might says from the projector. Izuku yelps in surprise. All Might. But this is from UA, isn't it? Izuku asks incredulously. I know it's been a while, but with great power comes a great amount of paperwork. All Might coughs before bowing politely. My apologies, young man. The truth is, I didn't come to this city just to fight villains. You're looking at the newest UA faculty member. Izuku stares, shocked. You're seriously going to be working at UA? Izuku asks the projection that can't even respond back to him because it was pre-recorded. All Might nods as if he can hear Izuku. Suddenly, on screen, a person appears to be getting All Might's attention. Yes, what's the matter? Who's showboating? Oh, sorry. I'll wrap it up, but I have to show him something first. Wait, I have to do how many of these things? Right. So, moving on. All Might finally finishes talking to the random person off camera. All Might clears his throat and Izuku gulps with nervousness. Even though you passed the written test, you got 0 combat points in the practical exam. Sorry. I know that. Izuku mumbles. Of course I know. He lowers his head, obviously upset. It's all I've thought about. He trembles. He squeezes his legs tightly. I'm a failure. His face twitches slightly. Fortunately, there were other factors. All Might continues. Izuku lifts his head up in curiosity and confusion. But before that, here. All Might says as he turns around with a remote and turns on a TV. A short clip for your viewing pleasure. On the TV screen, Achiko walks up to present Mike with a sad expression on her face. Do you have a sec? Achiko asks politely. Sorry to interrupt, Achiko apologizes. It's that nice girl, Izuku says to himself. She showed up after the exam to talk about you, young man. All Might says. Izuku asks, confused. Why would she want to talk about him? What did she have to say? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. All Might says. All Might unpauses the screen. You know that boy with the really messy hair and all the freckles? Achiko asks. It's strong to describe his face. He's kinda plain looking. Doesn't really stand out or anything, you know. Izuku's eyes widen. She means him. I was wondering, would it be possible to give him some of the points I earned in the exam? I heard him say something about wanting to get just 1 point, which just seems crazy. How can someone who took down that huge villain all by himself not have any points in the end? He would have had a better score if he hadn't stopped to help me. He saved me. I have to make it up to him. Achiko said. Izuku gasped. Please, sir. Can't you just give him my points? Achiko pleaded. You have a quirk now, yes? All Might began. But it's your actions that inspire others. Izuku smiles softly. And that's why I am here. You see, the combat exam was not graded on combat alone. All Might said, making an X with his arms. Thanks for showing up to the station with your request, but there's no reason to give him your points. He says, patting Akiko's head. The kid's charting well on his own. All Might walks in front of the TV screen. How can a hero course reject someone who is committed to saving others no matter the consequences to himself? After all, that is what makes a hero. And that's what my alma mater is all about. Training those who would risk their lives for the greater good. Izuku's eyes widen in shock. So, we have rescue points. A panel of judges watches and they award points for heroic acts beyond just fighting villains. Izuku Midoriya, 60 rescue points. And Achiko Uraraka, 45 rescue points. You both passed the exam. Is this some kind of joke? Izuku asks, happy and shocked at the same time. All Might turns around and holds his hand out to the camera. Welcome, Izuku. You have made it. All Might congratulates Izuku and Izuku is tearing up with a smile on his face. You're now part of the Hero Academia. Thanks, Izuku said, smiling through his tears. He wiped away his tears. It took a lot of help, but my life has changed completely. And now, I'm enrolling in the high school of my dreams. Check out the results from the exam. Says one teacher. Wow, the first place student didn't even have rescue points? A female hero replies. He took out those faux villains like an ace. Says another. While most of the other examinees were running from the big obstacle, he stayed focuses on letting the smaller targets get in close. And that counterattacking. That kid is tough. On the opposite place, the 7th place student had 0 villains points. Replied the female. Not the first UA hopeful to take out that giant robot. The male teacher replies. Though it's been a while since I saw someone blow it away with one attack. But at what cost? Did you see how badly he injured himself? Asked another male. If you ask me, it's like his body isn't used to his quirk. Shota Aizawa listens in on the conversation as he leans against the wall with his arms crossed. The night right after I opened my acceptance letter, he finally got in touch with me again. Izuku runs down the stairs of Dagoba Beach. All Might stands there waiting by the shore. All Might heard Izuku from behind and turned around. Izuku had tears running down his face rapidly. Hi, All Might. Izuku shouted out without thinking. All Might spat up BLD when he yelled because Izuku just exposed his identity. Too loud, kid. All Might exclaimed. A couple standing on the dock a few yards away heard Izuku. All Might's here. The male asked. All Might. No way. Where? The female asked frantically. It scared All Might out of his skin. Way to blow my cover. Say it was a mistake. All Might pleaded. Izuku's eyes widen, tears still in his eyes as he instantly understood the assignment. He frantically waved his arms in the air at the couple. I was just kidding. Nothing to see here. Lame, the male replied. I wanted an autograph. The female pouted. All Might and Izuku both calmed down after the couple seems to believe their lie as they sigh in relief. Congrats on getting in. All Might said. I couldn't have done it without your help. Izuku explained. Oh, speaking of which, I didn't tell anyone at UA that I've been training you or anything. All Might said. Izuku asked. Really, I wasn't one of the judges and I didn't pull any strings for ya. You earned your spot all on your own. All Might said with a smile. Wow. Thanks for telling me. Izuku replied as he quickly bowed down. I'm glad to hear that. Izuku gasped before looking up at All Might with a big smile. Oh yeah. I was really surprised to hear that you're going to be a teacher at UA this year. I was wondering what brought you here all of a sudden. After all, your agency is in Minato, Tokyo, and everyone knows. Izuku was cut off. Getting creepy, All Might replied. All Might walked closer to the shore before stopping. The school doesn't want me telling anyone about the job until they've made an official announcement. It seemed like fortuitous timing. An easy way to find someone new to inherit One for All. I was on a long hunt for a successor. All Might explained. So, that's it, Izuku replied with realization. He was originally planning to give it to Ayu. A student. Someone who was strong. Izuku glanced down at his hands. Someone who already had a quirk. Your power completely wrecked my body and all I did was jump and throw one punch? Izuku explained. I can't control it. What do I do? Izuku asked. You'll learn to manage it in time. All Might replied. Hoping to master it right away is like asking a baby to run a marathon. You still have to go through the process of learning how to walk. All Might explained. Yeah, wait. Izuku exclaimed. You knew I was gonna get hurt that badly. Izuku asked. Well, we were in a time crunch, All Might replied. But it turned out all right. Plus, now you know what you're dealing with. Izuku gasped. Right now, your quirk is either all or nothing. All Might said as he picked up 2 spray cans. One day you'll learn how to control your output. Then, you'll be able to adjust how much power you're using. I just need control. Izuku asked. You're overflowing with energy at the moment. With training your body will hold it better. He said before turning into his buff form and smashing the 2 cans he had previously picked up. Then it's yours to command. Izuku put on a face of determination. It really is All Might. The male from the dock earlier exclaimed. No way. Where'd he come from? The female asked. The sudden attention startled All Might. Right. Now we run. All Might exclaimed as he started running. Izuku asked, confused, but then he instantly realized they were about to be ambushed by the couple on the dock. Okay. He replied and followed after All Might. All Might glanced back at Izuku as they ran. The torch I passed on to you is but a small flame right now. In time, it'll be kindled until you wield a raging inferno. The more powerful you become, the more you'll outshine me. Eventually, I'll retire, my job complete. Oh, deep stuff, All Might. Izuku replied. A day in April, the first day at you. Izuku, you're all set? Inko asked. Yeah. Izuku replied. Are you sure? You didn't just pack action figures, right? Inko asked. Izuku glanced up at Inko, annoyed. I have everything. I gotta go. I don't want to be late. He said as he got up and slung his backpack over his shoulder, proceeding to walk towards the door. Izuku! Inko exclaimed. What? Izuku asked, exasperated as he held the door open to walk out. Inko teared up as she looked Izuku up and down. I'm really proud of you, son, she said with a wholesome smile. Izuku blushed slightly and gasped. That day, I began my high school career. Izuku smiled sheepishly before changing to a proud, happy smile. I'll see you soon. Izuku replied. Hi. The acceptance rate that year was just as small as it had been. 1 in 300. 4 people got in because of recommendations and 36 through regular exams. Izuku quickly ran through the gates to UA. We were split into 2 classes of 20 students each. Izuku ran through the halls of UA to try and get to class before he ended up being late. Class 1, he said frantically. Come on, where is it? He said as he looked ahead and saw a huge door. When he got to the door, he noticed how tall the door was. Man, this thing is huge. Are there giants here? Izuku asked. The most promising students in the country are waiting behind this door, Izuku said. He gasped at the thoughts of Bakugo and Ida being in this classroom came to mind. He shook his head, trying to rid himself of those haunting thoughts. Hopeful those students are in another class. Maybe everyone here is nice. He slid the door open. The moment he opened the door, he saw them. Ida was scolding Bakugo. Take your feet off of that desk now. Ida scolded. Bakugo asked with a smirk. It's the first day and you're already disrespecting this academy by scuffing school property, you cretin. Ida continued. You're kidding, right? Bakugo asked. Your old school put a stick up your butt or were you born with it? Izuku feels a little worried about this year now. Just my luck. Let's start over, Ida declared. I'm Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy, Ida said. Semi-huh? Bakugo asked. So you must think you're better than me, Bakugo asked, his smirk disappearing, replaced with irritation. I'm gonna have fun tearing you a new one, he said, his smirk returning. Ida jumped back, startled. You're threatening me. Your own classmate. Are you sure you're in the right place? Huh, Bakugo said, rolling his eyes before noticing the new arrival and glancing towards the door. It's him, Ida acknowledged. All the students turned to Izuku standing in the doorway. Hi, Izuku said, nervously and also kinda embarrassed because of all the attention. Good morning, Ida said as he approached Izuku, marching towards him as if he was in a marching band. I'm Tenya Ida from So. Izuku was trying to speak before being cut off. Yeah, I know. I'm Izuku Midoriya. Izuku introduced himself, tilting his head a bit. It's super nice to meet you. Midoriya, you realized that there was something more to the practical exam, didn't you? Ida asked. Izuku asked, confused. You must be very perceptive and I completely misjudged you, I admit. As a student, you're far superior to me, Ida said, glancing away, feeling ashamed. I find that strong to believe. Izuku objected. Hey, I recognize that messed up hair, Achiko said behind him. Falling boy. Izuku turned around, startled as he recognized who it was. That punch was amazing, Achiko praised before trying to imitate a punching move. Hi, oh my gosh, he squeaked out, his face turning completely red as he covered his face. So, I should probably be thanking you for going in and talking to him. How'd you know about that? Achiko questioned. Bakugo glared at Izuku from his seat. I think what? Izuku stuttered. Bakugo recalled the meeting he had with Izuku. He was when he found out Izuku had applied and got accepted. He's going to ruin that demon nerd. Bakugo's also confused on how Izuku got in the first place. Izuku looks away embarrassed as Achiko smiled at him. What do you think we're doing today besides orientation? I wonder what our teachers are like. Achiko said. I can't wait to meet everybody. If you're just here to make friends, then you can pack up your stuff now, Aizawa said behind them. Izuku gasped when he saw Aizawa. Achiko slowly turned around to see Aizawa in a yellow sleeping bag on the floor. She gasped. Welcome to you. A's hero course, Aizawa said before unzipping the sleeping bag a bit and taking a breath out of a pouch of some sort. What is that thing? Everyone asks. Aizawa slowly rose from the ground and unzipped his sleeping bag. It took 8 seconds before you all to shut up. That's not gonna work. Time is precious. Aizawa got out of the sleeping bag. Rational students would understand that. Izuku noticed Aizawa's appearance and was internally questioning it. Hello. I'm Shota Aizawa, your teacher. Aizawa introduced himself. Everyone gasped. He's their teacher. Right. Let's get to it. He grabbed a blue U, a gym uniform. Put these on and head outside. Everyone is confused. So, what? A quirk assessment test. Everyone asked, confused, but orientation. We're gonna miss it. Achiko complained. If you really want to make the big leagues, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies. Aizawa explained. Everyone gasps. Here at UA, we're not tethered to traditions. He glanced back at the class. That mean I get to run my class however I see fit. You've been taking standardized tests most of your lives. But you never got to use your quirks in physical exams before. He held up a chart on some weird electric device. The country's still trying to pretend we're all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational. One day, the Ministry of Education will learn. He turned his gaze to Bakugo specifically. Bakugo, you managed to get the most points on the entrance exam. What was your farthest distance throw with a softball when you were in junior high? Aizawa asked. Bakugo looked down and thought. 67 meters, I think. Right. Try doing it with your quirk, Aizawa ordered. When Bakugo got in the circle, Aizawa said, anything goes. Just stay in the circle. Go on. You're wasting our time, Aizawa said impatiently. Bakugo stretched in preparation. All right, man. You asked for it, he said as he got into position and threw the ball. Die! Bakugo shouted as he threw the ball with an explosion to propel it, and it flew high into the sky. Oh. Izuku responded, his eyes wide, stunned. All of you need to know your maximum capabilities, Aizawa said as the ball finally hit the ground. It's the most rational way of figuring out your potential as a pro hero, he said as he held up the weird device. It read 705. 2 meters. That's how high Bakugo threw the ball. 705 meters, are you kidding me? Denki Kaminari asked. I wanna go. That looks like fun. Mina Ashida exclaimed. This is what I'm talking about. Using our quirks as much as we want. Hanta Siro exclaimed as Eijiro Kirishima smirked. Aizawa's expression darkened. You have 3 years here to become a pro. You think it's all gonna be games and playtime. Idiots. Today, you'll compete in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately, he said with a smirk. Everyone gasped in shock. Izuku is starting to worry. He looks at his hand in worry. He can barely contain one for all. How is he gonna complete 8 tests? Like I said, I get to decide how this class runs. Understand? Aizawa says with a twisted smirk on his face, running his hand through his black hair. If that's a problem, you can head home right now. Achiko tries to stand up for the class. You can send one of us home. I mean, we just got here. Even if it wasn't the first day, that isn't fair. Oh, and you think natural disasters are? Aizawa asks and the students gasp. Or power-hungry villains. Or catastrophic accidents that wipe out whole cities. No, the world is full of unfairness. It's a hero's job to try and combat that unfairness. If you want to be a pro, you're gonna have to push yourself to the brink. For the next 3 years, UA will throw one terrible hardship after another at you. So, go beyond plus ultra style. Show me it's no mistake that you're here. Aizawa says. The students gasp and Ida reaches into his pocket and grabs a cup of some drink, most likely orange juice or something that he uses for fuel for his mufflers. He takes a sip. Ida doesn't approve of Aizawa's threats of expulsion and his way of thinking, but this is you. He has no choice but to. Bakugo continues to stretch and Achiko puts on a face of determination. Now then, we're just wasting time by talking. Let the games begin. Aizawa declared. The first test. 50-meter dash. Runners, on your marks. Ready. A robot says and then a gunshot is heard for them to begin. Tsuyu Azui and Ida are running this round. Azui uses her frog-like skills to jump and propel herself forward while Ida uses his mufflers for an impressive improvement of speed. Ida beats Azui. As Ida runs past the finish line, the robot says, 3. For seconds. Ida skidded to a halt. Tenya Ida, his quirk, engine. As you can see, his legs are pretty fast. Well, he's definitely in his element, but speed won't help him in every test, Aizawa said, glancing at him, still holding the weird device in his hand. I'll lighten up my clothes. Oh, and my shoes too. Achiko says as she activates her quirk on her gym uniform and shoes. Achiko Uraraka. Her quirk, zero gravity. Get set. The robot says as it's Achiko's turn to run. The gunshot sounds and Achiko starts running. She can nullify the gravitational pull of anything she touches. But if she uses her power too much, she totally hurls. Mashareo Ojiro uses his tail to propel himself to the finish line as Achiko nears the finish line. When Ojiro finishes, the robot says, 5:49 seconds. As Achiko finishes, the robot says, 7:15 seconds. Achiko sweats as she finishes. She presses her fingertips together with a smile to release her quirk from her clothes. Well, at least that's faster than junior high. Aoyama puts his hand to his chin as if thinking before turning around with his navel laser ready to go. Nice attempts, Mon Amos, but you're just not showing enough panache. Mina gets into a running position on the ground and Aoyama squats before jumping up and activating his navel laser midair. Let your powers shine. Yuga Aoyama. His quirk, navel laser. That's right, a belly button laser. But he can't shoot it forever. Aoyama's laser deactivates and he falls on his but before quickly jumping back into the air and shooting his laser again. He didn't manage to do it before Mina passed him though. 5:51 seconds? The robot called out as Aoyama passed the finish line. Aoyama glances behind him. Shooting my beam for more than a second hurts my tummy. What a tool. Shiro, Mina, Aizawa, Kirishima, and Kaminari say in unison behind Aoyama. Testing the upper limits of their powers helps me assess their room for growth. It becomes clear what they can and can't do. Their true potential. Runners, on your marks. The robot says and Izuku and Bakugo take their places. Ready. And then the gunshot goes off and they start running. Sometimes, pros have to be creative in order to succeed. Aizawa examines as Bakugo runs and moves his hands to face behind himself. Burst speed. Bakugo shouts as explosions start propelling him forward and making him basically fly. 4:13 seconds. The robot says as Bakugo crosses the finish line. Katsuki Bakugo. His quirk, explosion. As Izuku crosses the finish line, the robot says, 7:2 seconds. My power has more uses than anyone else's in this school. Bakugo says as his palms start to smoke. He glances at Izuku next to him. Pathetic. Izuku starts to worry. None of these tests are suitable for his power so far. He recalls that 3 weeks before school started, he tried to create a synonym for what his power was like when he used it for the first time. It was similar to that of an egg about to explode in a microwave. He just has to keep the egg from exploding by adjusting the cooking time and wattage, and that way, he'll be able to control the amount of damage one for all deals to his body. Aizawa looks on as the students complete the first test. Grip strength. Izuku closes his eyes to try and concentrate. He has to remember to keep the egg from exploding. He gripped the machine he was holding as strong as he could, but his eyes turned to worry and fear once he realized his score was only 56. He looked up when he heard Shiro and Tenor Mineta praising and complimenting Shoji's score. Wow! Shiro exclaimed. You hit 540 kilograms. You're such a beast. Yeah. Like a muscly octopus. Mineta exclaimed. Standing long jump. Aoyama blasts his way across the sand with ease using his naval laser. Katsuki also passed with ease by flying over it with his explosions. Izuku didn't make it all the way across because his quirk wasn't suited for this kind of test. Izuku sat up with determination and he willed himself to focus. For repeated sidesteps, Mineta uses his sticky ball to bounce from side to side very fast. Izuku watched. In shock. He can't do this one either. Ball throw. Achiko smiles and reels back to throw the ball. When she throws it, the ball never comes back down due to her zero gravity. It flew all the way to space. Aizawa glanced at his device before presenting it to the class. It read infinity with the infinity symbol. Infinity! The class exclaimed in unison. That's insane. How's that possible? Kaminari asked in shock. Izuku stares at her in shock. He'll never be able to throw a ball that far. Once it's his turn, he holds the ball and tries to think of some kind of plan to do this and actually get a good score this time. If Midoriya doesn't shape up soon, he's the one going home. Ida says. Bakugo glances at him. Of course he is. He's a quirkless loser. Bakugo said, pointing at Izuku. Ida glances at Bakugo as if he's crazy. He has a quirk. Did you not hear about what he did in the entrance exam? Bakugo asked. Aizawa stares at Izuku with doubt. Finally, Izuku musters up the courage to throw the ball with all his might, one for all coursing through his entire arm. Suddenly, Aizawa's eyes snap open and his eyes glow red as he activates his quirk. Izuku's quirk deactivates and the ball only goes 46 meters. Izuku's eyes are wide with dread. Didn't he activate his quirk just now? What gives? I was trying to use it just now, Izuku says as he looks at the arm he was throwing with. I erased your quirk. Aizawa says as his gray capture scarf floats around him. Izuku turns towards him confused and the sight startles him. Aizawa is glaring at him, his capture scarf and hair floating, and his eyes glowing red. The judges for this exam were not rational enough. Someone like you should never be allowed to enroll at this school. You did what to my... Izuku pauses as his eyes widen in realization. Those goggles. I know you. You can look at someone and cancel out their powers. The Erasure hero, Eraserhead. Eraser? Who's that? Shiro asks. Oh, I've heard of him. Ashui says. I think he works on the down low. Nearby, All Might is spying in his gold-colored suit. You're not ready. You don't have control over your power. Aizawa says. Are you planning to break your bones again? Counting on someone else to save your useless body? Aizawa asks. No. That's not what I was trying to do. Izuku objects before Aizawa's capture scarf reaches for him and pulls him up close and personal to Aizawa. No matter what your intentions are, you would be nothing more than a liability in battle. You have the same reckless passion as another overzealous hero I know. One who saved 1,000 people by himself and became a legend. But even with that drive, you're worthless if you can only throw a single punch before breaking down. Sorry, Midoriya. With your power, there's no way you can become a hero. Izuku becomes frustrated, but then Aizawa releases his capture scarf and deactivates his power. I've returned your impractical quirk. Take your final throw. Hurry and get it over with. Aizawa said before walking off. I wonder if our teacher gave him some advice. Ida wondered. He probably told him to start packing. Bakugo assumed. I'm here, Sherry. Aoyama said to Ochako as he put his hand on her shoulder. Wait, who are you again? Ochako asked. I've only got one shot at nailing this, so what am I gonna do? Izuku asked himself. He began to think of some sort of plan to do this without breaking his bones as much. Izuku puts on a quick face of determination as he reels his arm back. All Might, who is still spying, asks, Hey, is he for real? Izuku's arm descends as he prepares to throw it. As Izuku's just about to throw it, One for All activates in the tip of his index finger. Smash! Izuku shouts as he throws the ball. The ball rapidly explodes into the air with pure force, cutting through the air fast. Everyone gasps. He only broke one finger. It hurts, but not as bad as before. He recalled what Aizawa had told him a minute ago as the ball hit the ground. The device Aizawa held said the ball traveled 705.3 meters. Mr. Aizawa. Izuku said as Aizawa looked up from the device and back up to Izuku. Izuku put on a smile of confidence. You see, I'm still standing. He claimed. Aizawa put on some unreadable expression with a smile, but he's obviously surprised. This kid, nice. He's finally showing us his true power. Ochako says with a smile. Ida puts his hand to his forehead to block out the sun. But his finger appears to be broken now. Ida puts his hand to his chin as he thinks. Just like the exam. This quirk is very odd. It wasn't a very pretty throw, Aoyama said. Bakugo is stunned, shocked. Then his shock turns to anger. Explosions crackle from his palms. Hey! He shouted to Izuku as he raced towards him. Deku, UBSTRD. Tell me how you did that, or you're dead. Izuku freezes and his expression turns to fear. Suddenly, Aizawa's capture scarf wraps around Bakugo as Bakugo is forced to stop. Izuku gasps as Aizawa does that. What? Why the hell is your diamond scarf so strong? Bakugo rasps out as he struggles to break through the material. Because it's a capture weapon made of a carbon fiber and a special metal alloy. Stand down. Aizawa orders. It'd be wise to avoid making me use my quirk so much. It gives me serious dry eye. Too bad. That power's amazing. Class 1A exclaims as a whole. Class 1 as homeroom teacher, showed Aizawa. He can erase the quirk of anyone he looks at. But the effect ends when he blinks. You're wasting my time now. Aizawa says as he retracts his scarf and deactivates his quirk. Whoever's next can step up. Aizawa says as he walks off, waving his hand dismissively. Izuku cautiously stepped around Bakugo before rushing back to the rest of his class. Bakugo ouch, is your finger okay? Ochako asks, concerned. Sure, fine. Izuku replies. Bakugo clenches his fists in anger as he glares at Izuku behind him, his eyes twitching with anger. After that, I had to fight through the pain as we finished up the rest of our physical fitness tests. After all 8 tests. Alright, time to give you your results. Aizawa said. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'll just pull up the whole list. It's not worth going through each individual score. Aizawa pressed a button on a remote control and a projector with everybody's ranking appeared. Izuku was in last place. And I was lying. No one's going home. Aizawa stated after Izuku was already mentally beating himself up over it. Everyone was stunned. It was a hoax. That was just a rational deception to make sure you gave it your all in the test. Aizawa said with a weird smile on his face. Everyone was shocked, but Izuku was the most shocked since he was the one who got last place and was supposed to be going home, but apparently Aizawa changed his mind. I'm surprised the rest of you didn't figure that out. I'm sorry, I guess I probably should have said something. Momo Yaoyorozu said. Yeah, you should have. Kyoka Jiro, Mineta, and Kaminari said. That was pretty nerve-wracking. Siro asked. Nah, I'm always down for a challenge. Kirishima said. Bakugo scoffed, still at Izuku. That's it. We're done for the day. Iowa declared. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom. Aizawa ordered as he started walking off. Read it over tomorrow morning. Izuku sighs with relief but is snapped out of his relief when Aizawa calls his name. Midoriya, take this and have the old lady fix you up, he said as he handed Izuku a slip of paper. Izuku grabs it. Things are gonna be tougher tomorrow when your actual training begins. Make sure you're prepared. Aizawa finishes as he turns a corner. Izuku looks down at the slip of paper he received with a sad expression. Aizawa, that was a rotten move. All Might says as Aizawa turns the corner. All Might, so you were watching? No talk shows today. Aizawa asks. A rational deception. That's cute, but you're not exactly known for being lighthearted. I read your file. Last year, you expelled an entire class of freshman students. You have no problem kicking students out. Anyone you deem unworthy. You were planning to send last place home. So that can only mean you see the same kind of potential in young Midoriya that I do. What is this about? Aizawa asked as he turned towards All Might with a smirk. It almost sounds like you were in this corner the whole time. All Might is stunned. Isn't it a little early for you to be playing favorites? Aizawa asked as he started walking off again. He doesn't have zero potential, I admit. If that were the case, I would have sent him straight home after class without hesitation. It's cruel to let a kid keep dreaming of something that will never come true. All Might watched as Aizawa walked off. In your own strange way, you're a kind man, Aizawa. I know that. But, clearly we are gonna have us a problem. After school, Izuku is exhausted. He slowly walks down the pathway to exit the school, and then suddenly he felt a hand on his shoulder which startled him, but then he realized that it's just his classmate. Hey there, Ida. How's the broken finger doing? Ida asked. Oh, it's doing fine thanks to Recovery Girl. Izuku said as he held up his bandaged index finger. Ida and Izuku started walking together. Izuku looks at his finger with a determined expression. Ida held his hand to his chin in thought. I was a bit concerned about Aizawa's approach to class. But I trust the school's judgment. Ida says, waving one of his index fingers. UA is the top program. Even so, lying is downright immoral, he said as he crossed his arms. As Ida and Izuku continue to walk side by side, Achiko calls out behind them. Hey, wait up, Ida. Are you going to the station? I'll join you guys. She says as she stops in front of them. Oh, you're the Infinity Girl. Ida says. I'm Achiko Uraraka. Achiko says as she glances at Ida. Let's see. You are Tenya Ida. You're Deku, right? Midoriya. Achiko asks as she glances at Izuku. Deku? Izuku questioned abruptly. Yeah. Isn't that what Bakugo called you? Achiko held a finger up. In the fitness test he said, Deku. You be a surdy. Right? Oh. My name's actually Izuku. Deku's just what Kaken calls me to make fun of me, Izuku explains. Ida holds a hand to his chin. That's unsportsmanlike. Achiko grabs the back of her head nervously. Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. But you know what? I like Deku. It could make a great hero name. Achiko says, trying to lighten the mood. Plus, I think it sounds kinda cute. Izuku's face flashes red. Deku it is? Izuku exclaims. Just like that. Ida questions. Weren't you saying that it was an insult? Izuku turns around and quickly covers his face, blushing. Paradigm shift. My whole world is upside down. Izuku exclaims. Wait, what? Achiko asks, confused. After they left UA, they were walking home. I survived my first day at UA even if I kinda failed. But you know what, All Might? At least I'm making some new friends. That's gotta be a good thing, right? With All Might holds his hero costume. You don't have time to relax, Midoriya. Not yet. The real test begins tomorrow. The next day, there are normal core classes like English. They meet in the mornings. Now, which of these 4 sentences contains a mistake? Present Mike asks the class. Present Mike realizes that basically no one is paying attention. Hey, everyone look alive. Grammar rules. Momo Yaoyorozu raises her hand. Yaoyorozu, lay it on us. Present Mike calls on her. Lunch. We eat lunch in the main cafeteria where we can buy pretty tasty stuff on the cheap. White rice is the perfect comfort food, isn't it? Lunch Rush asks. Achiko, Ida, and Izuku all stare at him. Izuku starts fanboying, Achiko is enjoying the food, and Ida is just surprised. This is super good. Achiko replies. The class what? And then in the afternoon, it's finally time. Hero basic training. I'm here. Coming through the door like a hero. All Might exclaims as he pops through the door in a very weird way. I can't believe it's really All Might. Kaminari exclaimed. So he is a teacher. This year's gonna be totally awesome. Kirishima said. Hey look, is he wearing his Silver Age costume? Tsuyu asks as All Might marches heroically to the front of the classroom. I'm getting goosebumps. It's so retro. Ojiro says. Welcome to the most important class at UA High. Think of it as Heroing 101. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro. And what it means to fight in the name of good. Let's get into it. Today's lesson? We'll pull no punches. All Might exclaimed as he holds up a card that read the word battle in red. Bakugo smiles widely. Fight training. Real combat? Izuku questions. But one of the keys of being a hero is looking good. All Might exclaims as he points to a bunch of slots with briefcases and seat numbers written on those briefcases coming out of the wall. These were designed for you based on your quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. They gasp as they see the suitcases in the slots. Costumes? Izuku says with a confident smile on his face. Get yourselves suited up and then meet me at Training Ground Beta? All Might ordered. Yes, sir. The class replied. All Might waits at the exit for the students to come out all geared up for training. They say that clothes make the pros, young ladies and gentlemen, and behold, you are the proof. All Might says as Class 1A emerges from the exit tunnel. Take this to heart. From now on you're all heroes in training. He looked at everyone's unique costume designs. This is getting me all revved up. You look so cool. Shall we get started, ya buncha newbies? The clothing allowance. Before we enrolled at UA, we submitted our quirk registration forms, which included physical measurements and any desired costume designs to an exclusive clothing company designated by the school. With all that info, they created state-of-the-art costumes for us. 3 days ago. I need to go to the city hall today and get my registration form for the clothing allowance. Izuku said, then he gasps, realizing something. But I'm already registered as having no quirk, he says while looking at paper in his hand. He glances up from it. Oh no, what should I do? Izuku calls All Might about it. Quirk registration. Yeah, you can update that, not a problem. All Might says over the phone. It's that easy. Izuku exclaims. All Might chuckles. You know how everyone's examined and registered when they enter elementary school? Izuku nodded. Where there are plenty of cases where people discover that their quirks aren't exactly what they thought they were at first. You're allowed to revise your forms once or twice when you understand your powers better. Normally, they won't let you change it too much, but if you had None before, I'm sure they'll want you to update things. Look, just barge in there and Izuku suddenly gets startled by his mom's voice and accidentally hangs up on All Might. Hi. I'm home. Inko calls out. See, I hung up on All Might? Izuku exclaims. He'll definitely have to apologize for that later. Inko opens the door and steps in before closing it behind her. Oh good. You're here. She says as she reaches for something in her purse. She pulls out a green hero costume. Congratulations. Inko exclaimed as she held it up. I'm so proud you got into you. Inko praises. Izuku quickly gets up from the couch. Is that a costume? Izuku asked. I guess I might have jumped the gun a little bit. I brought you food earlier but you dozed off. And I maybe happened to peek at your notebook. Inko explains. Seriously? Izuku asks. Inko's expression falters. To be honest with you, I've been feeling really terrible lately. About something I said to you. I think you might have felt that I gave up on you a while back. But now look at you. You persevered and kept chasing your dream like a real champion. Izuku gives her a soft smile. Inko tears up and smiles. I'm sorry, Izuku. And I promise I'll support you with everything I've got from now on. Izuku grabs the hero costume from Inko. Present. It's a gift from my mom, so of course it's what I'm gonna wear. It's not state-of-the-art or flashy, but it means something to me. This is it. My hero costume. Izuku emerges from the tunnel shortly after the others. Achiko notices him and smiles. Hey, Deku. Uraraka. Izuku exclaims. Izuku blushes as he sees her costume. I love your costume. Not too flashy, you know. Achiko says. Izuku covers his mouth and trembles in shock. I should have been more specific about what I wanted. Achiko says, scratching the back of her head nervously. This bodysuit is skin-tight. Not really my style. Achiko says. I love this school. Mineta says, flashing a thumbs up. He questions, snapping you of his previous initial shock as he looks down at the little midget. All Might recognizes the similarities between himself and Izuku's hero costume. All Might glances away and covers his mouth. You're so obvious. Now that you're ready, it's time for combat training. All Might declares. Sir, Ida says from behind his metal mask. Izuku glances at Ida, realizing who it is just by the voice. This is the fake city from Out entrance exam. Does that mean that we'll be conducting urban battles again? Ida asks. Not quite. All Might says. I'm going to move you 2 steps ahead. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, run-ins with the most dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent villains stay hidden in the shadows. For this training exercise, you'll be splitting into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. Isn't this a little advanced? Ajax. The best training is what you get on the battlefield. All Might exclaims. But remember, you can't just punch a robot this time. You're dealing with actual people now. Sir, will you be the one deciding who wins? Yaoyorozu asks. How much can we hurt the other team? Bakugo asks. Do we need to worry about the losers getting expelled like earlier? Achiko asks. Will you be splitting us by chance or comparative skill? Ida asks. Isn't this Cape Troyes chic? Aoyama asks. I wasn't finished talking. All Might says. All Might opens up a tiny booklet. Listen up. The situation is this. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. To do that, the good guys are to either catch the evildoers or recover the weapon. Likewise, the bad guys succeed if they protect their payload or capture the heroes. All Might holds up a box labeled lots. Time's limited and we'll choose teams by drawing lots. Isn't there a better way? Ida asks. Think about it. Izuku says with a smile, holding a finger up. Pros often have to team up with heroes from other agencies on the spot, so maybe that's the reason we're seeing that here. Yes, I see. Ida replies, understanding. Life is a random series of events. Ida bows down. Excuse my rudeness. All Might turns around quickly. No sweat. Let's draw. Team A wields Achiko and Izuku. Team B wields Shoji and Shoto Todoroki. Team C wields Mineta and Yaoyorozu. Team D wields Bakugo and Ida. Team E wields Aoyama and Mina. Team F wields Rikido Sato and Koji Koda. Team G wields Kaminari and Jiro. Team H wields Fumikage Tokoyami and Azuri. Team I wields Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J wields Siro and Kirishima. Wow. What are the chances? We're a team. Achiko exclaims happily as Izuku blushes. Izuku has to make a good impression on her. I declare that the first teams to fight will be All Might trailed off. He digs in the lot boxes. He pulls out 2 spheres that each have a team letter on them. These guys, the spheres show teams D and A. Team A will be the heroes, Team D will be the villains. Everyone else can head to the monetary room to watch. Yes, sir. The students replies as they start walking off to the designated room. Izuku glances at Bakugo, who is glaring at him. Izuku is scared now. He forces himself to put on a determined expression and he clenches his fists and glances back at Bakugo. This catches Bakugo off guard, but Bakugo quickly regains his composure. Bad guys, you can go on in and get set up, All Might says. In 5 minutes, the good guys will be let loose and the battle will start. Yes, sir. Izuku, Achiko, and Ida say. Young Ida. Young Bakugo. All Might calls out as Ida and Bakugo are entering the building. The key to being successful in this challenge is to embody villainy. Think from the perspective of an evildoer. Bakugo glances at Izuku. Got it? Ida replies. If things go too far, I'll step in. Understood. All Might asks. Izuku is just Bakugo off at this point. Bakugo and Ida stand in the room the weapon is in. Even though this is training, it pains me to be aligned with criminal behavior, Ida says as he approaches the weapon. This is the weapon we must protect. Ida examines before knocking on it, a hollow metallic sound emanating from it. Fake, of course. Hey! Bakugo calls out. Ida turns around and glances at Bakugo, who has his back turned to Ida. Do you really think Deku has a quirk? Bakugo asks. You saw how he threw that ball. Though I think his power hurts his body. Bakugo scoffs with annoyance. Why is it that you seem to be especially angry when it comes to Midoriya? Ida asks. Bakugo trembles with anger, thinking that Deku's been lying and tricking him all these years by saying he's quirkless. You think they expect us to memorize this building's floor plan? It's so big. You know, All Might's just as cool in person as he is on television. Achiko says. Achiko turns to Izuku. I'm glad he's not threatening us with some kind of punishment like Mr. Aizawa. We can relax. You're sweating, thought your costume. Achiko notices. Izuku trembles. Oh, it's just because we're up against Kaken. Plus, there's Ida too. We should be on our guard. Who knows what they'll pull? Alright, Bakugo. He's the one who's always making fun of you. Achiko says, worried. And he's amazing, Izuku mutters. He can be a real pain. Bus his strength and his confidence and his ambition. Not to mention his quirk. They're all so much greater than mine. Izuku stands up straight. But that just means I have to do better. He puts on the muzzle part of his mask. I refuse to lose today. Achiko admires his confidence. So, it's a fated battle between rivals? Achiko said. Izuku blushes again. Not that I'm trying to get you wrapped up in my fight or anything. Are you kidding? We're a team, right? Achiko asks. Let's win this. Achiko exclaims with confidence. Izuku smiles softly at her and nods. Alright, let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A and Team D. Your time starts now. All Might declared from in the monetary room. Pay attention, kids. Think about what you would do. All Might fixes his earpiece. Izuku and Achiko sneak into the building through the window. And just like that, we're in, Achiko says. Careful. There are a lot of blind spots. Izuku warns as Achiko follows him through the building. Izuku peeks behind a corner and once he declares that it's safe, he motions for Achiko to follow. Izuku and Achiko look around in the dim light. Izuku reaches another corner and does the same thing. He peeks behind the corner and once it's clear, He motions for Ochako to follow. Izuku gasps as Bakugo suddenly leaps out behind a corner completely undetected at first as he throws a right hook at Izuku with an explosion following directly after. Izuku and Ochako manages to dodge as Bakugo's explosion hits the wall behind them instead. Izuku quickly sits up. Uraraka. You okay? I'm fine. Thanks. Ochako replies. Oh, Dad. Ochako exclaims as he notices Izuku's mask is torn. It's just my mask. Izuku reassures her. Bakugo blows away the smoke left by the explosion using his arm. What's the matter, Deku? Bakugo asks. Afraid to stand up and fight me? I knew you'd come at me first, and figured you'd try to catch me by surprise. Izuku stands up with newfound confidence. He almost got the jump on them. Mineta exclaims for the monetary room. Sneak attack, Belugo. What kind of man pulls cheap CRP like that? Kirishima asks. It's a viable strategy. All Might explains. He's playing the part, acting like a true villain would. It didn't work. Midoriya dodged him. Mina exclaimed. There he goes. Kaminari points out as Bakugo lunges at Izuku. I won't hurt you so bad they'll have to stop the fight. Just close. Bakugo shouts as he performs another right hook, but Izuku catches his arm. Wow. Look at those moves. Ochako exclaims. Izuku proceeds to throw Bakugo over his shoulder, slamming him onto the ground. Bakugo grunts as he hits the strong flooring. Izuku after that super awesome stunt he just pulled. Kaken. Bakugo slowly sits up. You always use a big right hook to start a fight. I know because I've watched you for years. Bakugo glances back at Izuku. I analyzed every amazing hero, even you. I wanted to learn everything I could about them. It was all in the notebook you burned and threw away. Izuku stands up straight and gets into a fighting stance, filled with determination. You can call me Deku, but I'm not the same helpless, defenseless kid anymore. You hear me? I've changed. From now on, Deku is the name of a hero. Ochako gasps as she remembers what she said to Izuku. Deku would make a great hero name. Bakugo stands up and faces Izuku with anger. Deku, you're shaking in your boots, you're so scared. Explosions crackle from Bakugo's palms as Deku trembles. But you want to fight me anyway. That's why I hate you. Kaken and I grew up in the same neighborhood, so we've known each other since we were little kids. All the other neighborhood kids followed him around. It seemed like he could do anything. And no matter what he decided to do, he was always so confident. I thought he was the coolest person I'd ever met. However, after his quirk manifested, he started to change. Here's the sad truth. All men are not created equal. When I was 4 years old, I learned that some kids have more power than others. Bakugo hears Ida's voice from his earpiece. Bakugo, come in. Give me a status report. Where are you? Ida asks. Bakugo pressed a button on his earpiece. Just shut up and defend the weapon. I've got more important things to worry about. Bakugo replies. Are you forgetting what our mission is? Ida asks through his earpiece as he stands near the weapon. Hello. He hung up on me. Ida exclaimed. This isn't the time for radio silence. We're supposed to be partners. Arg. From the observatory room, Kirishima asks, who is Bakugo talking to? I'm not hearing anything. Can we get any sound with this video? All Might points to his ear. He's got a radio in his ear so he can talk to his partner. I gave it to him before the match started, along with a map of the building. Also this. He picked up a roll of tape. A roll of capture tape. Wrapping this around your opponent means you've apprehended them, and they're out for the rest of the game. All Might explains. So, there's a 15-minute time limit and the good guys don't know what floor the nuclear weapon is hidden on, right? Mina asks. Correct. All Might replies. Then, the heroes are clearly at a disadvantage here. A big one. Mina says. Real pros have to outwit villains on a daily basis. That's life. Even when the odds aren't in our favor, we fight. All Might says. Kirishima chuckles. All together. All Might says. Let's hear a plus ultra. Everyone in the observatory room shouts in unison. Monsieur. He's on the move. Aoyama says. All Might turns to look back at the monitors. Bakugo throws his hand behind himself, hand outstretched for an explosion. Izuku gasps when he notices. Uraraka. He shouts as Achiko starts to bolt down the hall of the building when Bakugo lunges at Izuku with explosions propelling himself. He aimed a kick at Izuku and Izuku blocks it with his arms as Achiko runs off to find the room with the hidden nuclear weapon in it. Ballsy move. Think you can take me alone? Bakugo asks. He gasps when he looks down at his leg and realizes Izuku is trying to apprehend him with the capture tape. Izuku predicts Bakugo's moves and dodges as Bakugo throws another big punch which hits the wall instead since Izuku dodged. From the observatory room, Sato says, the little guy's really good. He's holding his own and he hasn't even used his quirk yet? Shiro says. All Might doesn't seem surprised though. Izuku as he crouches low to the ground after that quick dodge. Izuku notices that Bakugo is up his moves so that Deku will struggle to predict them. Bakugo throws both hands behind himself, ready for more explosions. Deku turns and bolts down the hallway. Get back here, Deku! Bakugo shouts. Bakugo turns the corner and doesn't see Izuku. Izuku keeps running down the halls, trying to gain some distance. Bakugo runs down to a two-way hall. He chooses to run to the right. Bakugo keeps looking but can't find Izuku. Bakugo is, damn it. You were tricking me for years by acting weak. Bet, you've been laughing behind my back. He yells out, his voice echoing throughout the floor thereon as Izuku continues to run. So, where's that flashy power of yours now? Let's see how it compares to mine. He growls out as explosions crackle from his palms. Quirk or no, you'll never beat me, Deku. From the observatory room, Kaminari says, that guy has some real anger issues. Kind scary, Bakugo busts down a door with his explosions and looks for Izuku through that doorway. Izuku as he hides behind a corner. He wipes his mouth. Bakugo continues to bust down doors looking for Izuku. It appears Bakugo isn't working with Ida. Izuku puts on a face of determination. He can do this. Stop hiding. Bakugo shouts out. Come out and face me, you coward. Bakugo stalks down the hallway, thinking about all the stupid things Deku said to him that him off. Bakugo walks up a flight of stairs. Achiko manages to find the room the nuclear weapon is in, and she peeks out from behind a concrete pillar. Achiko is just about to call Deku using his earpiece when she hears Ida start speaking to himself, so she pauses to hear what he has to say. Bakugo definitely has a villainous side, and that's exactly what we need to succeed in this mission. I need to temporarily devote myself to criminal intent. I won't fail this trial and risk bringing shame down on the Ida family name. That means I must now embrace evil. To become a hero. Behold, I am the personification of villainy. Ida cackles like a villain. It catches Achiko off guard and she accidentally makes a sound and Ida hears it. Uraraka, is that you? Ida asks. Achiko gasps as he notices her presence. She slowly reveals herself from behind the pillar. Ida points at her triumphantly. I knew you would come here alone the instant that Bakugo ran off by himself and engaged with Midoriya. Your quirk allows you to float anything you touch, but I've prepared for that by hiding every object in this room so that you have nothing to use against me, do-gooder. My dastardly tricks have rendered you helpless. You've blundered, hero. Ida laughs villainously. Achiko feels nervous by how good Ida is playing the part here. Achiko says through her earpiece. I'm here. How's it going? Izuku asks through the earpiece. Ida knows that I'm here. Sorry. Right now, he's monologuing. Achiko responds. Where are you? Izuku asks. In the middle of the 5th floor. Achiko responds. Izuku looks around before looking upwards and saying, right above me. Izuku's grip tightens on the capture tape and he gets up with confidence as he glances around the corner he's hiding behind. Suddenly, Izuku hears a weird noise behind him and glances down the hall and sees Bakugo. Bakugo lifts up one of his gauntlets with a creak. I'm all loaded up. What does that mean? Izuku asks, not letting his guard down. Why aren't you using your fancy quirk? Don't tell me you're underestimating me, Deku. He speaks with a twisted smile on his face. Get over here and show me what you're really made of. Izuku stretches out the capture tape. Izuku gets into a fighting stance with determination. Kaken, I'm not scared of you anymore. Bakugo growls before smirking. Since you're such a stalker, you probably know how my quirk, explosion, works. I secrete nitroglycerin-like sweat from my hands and make it blow up. Imagine what it could do if I had a lot of it. Bakugo has his hand extended, his palm facing Izuku. That's right. These gauntlets aren't just for show. He leans back and puts his hand on the pin of his grenade-looking gauntlets. They've been storing up my sweat inside for one monster blast. Young Bakugo. All Might yells out into a microphone for him to hear. Don't do it. You'll kill him. All Might warns. He'll be fine as long as he dodges. Bakugo says with a huge smile on his face as he pulls the pin. An explode shoots out from his gauntlet and travels down the hall rapidly towards Izuku. Izuku tries to block it with his arms, but he gets thrown backwards as the explosion travels through to the other side of the building and knocks a big hole in the wall. The whole building shakes. Even the observatory room is shaking a bit. Oh, this is nuts. Kirishima exclaims. Come in. Come in, Midoriya. All Might says through the microphone. Smoke is everywhere in the floor Izuku and Bakugo are in. Izuku groans and he slowly looks up from where he is laying. Is that even allowed? Izuku asks. Katsuki laughs. These are awesome, he says as he approaches Izuku. The more nitro sweat that's stored in these gauntlets, the stronger the explosion is. Go ahead. Use your stupid quirk on me, Deku. Even if you give me everything you've got, you'll never beat me, he says as he glares at Izuku with a psychotic smile. Bakugo, answer me. Ida says through the earpiece. What is going on down there? Did you cause that blast? Ida let his guard down trying to communicate with Bakugo. Achiko uses this moment to her advantage and rushes towards Ida and the nuclear weapon in order to detain it. Unluckily for her, Ida notices and runs towards her. Not so fast, hero. Achiko presses her fingertips together as she runs, activating her quirk. She bounces onto the pink bouncy pads on the bottom of her heels and she jumps, floating high into the air with her quirk, soaring over Ida as she approaches the weapon. Since when can she make herself float? Ida asks. Achiko presses her fingertips together to deactivate her quirk. Release. Ida is quick to react and he activates his mufflers, speeding to get the weapon out of Achiko's reach. Achiko descends toward the weapon as she prepares to grab it, but she's too slow. Ida manages to grab the weapon and speed off with it. Achiko starts to panic as she descends toward the floor instead. She tumbles on the ground and hits the back wall. Admirable attempt, but your quirk's no threat if you can't touch anything. I can easily keep this weapon out of your reach until time runs out, Ida says before laughing villainously. Achiko slowly sits up and glances at him with determination. What's the matter? You look scared. Bakugo says. You dodged the attack so you can still fight, can't you? Come and get me. Izuku reaches up and presses the button on his earpiece. Come in. What's the situation? It's not good, Achiko replies. Are you ignoring me again? Bakugo asks. I'll get your attention. From the observatory room, Kirishima asks, Sir, isn't this getting out of hand? That Bakugo is acting real crazy. He's gonna kill him. Not so, All Might replies. He grabs the microphone again. Bakugo, use that stored up power again and I'll stop this fight. Your team will lose. Bakugo asks. To employ such a strong attack indoors is inviting the destruction of the stronghold you should be protecting. That's a poor strategy whether you're a hero or a villain. The penalty will be a massive loss of points. All Might says. Bakugo begins to tremble with anger. He yells out in anger. The pillar by the window. Get there now. He says to Achiko through his earpiece before looking back up at Bakugo. Fine then. We'll fight hand to hand. Bakugo shouts out before lunging at Izuku, using his explosions to propel himself forward through the air. Izuku tries to counterattack with a punch, but Bakugo dodges by propelling himself out of the way with an explosion. Once he's directly above Izuku, He uses another explosion to propel himself so that he's directly behind Izuku before blasting another explosion at Izuku's back, causing Izuku to yell out in pain and stumbles forward. In the observatory room, Kirishima asks, "What was that move?" He doesn't come off as a guy with a strategy, but he's actually quite intelligent. Todoroki says, Mina and Kirishima question, "What are you talking about?" asks Kirishima. He changes his trajectory while in midair using a blast. That doubled as a smokescreen. Very clever. Todoroki explains. A feint attack like that requires an extreme amount of precision. He had to calculate the physics and demonstrate control over his quirk. Momo explains. Bakugo is uber talented. I hate it. Kaminari complains. Izuku grunts as he feels the pain in his back as he glances back. Here it comes, nerd. The famous right hook you were complaining about. Bakugo shouts as he aims a right hook at Izuku's right arm. Izuku yells out in pain at the collision. Bakugo grabs Izuku's arm, spins around, and smashes him into the ground. Don't you ever forget what you are. You're a weakling. Bakugo yells. Izuku has no choice but to use one for all. From the observatory room, Mina says, "This is strong for me to watch." All he has to do is wrap tape around him, not kill him. Bakugo's certainly acting like a villain. Tokoyami says. Kaminari scratches his head. I thought Midoriya was pretty amazing at the start of the fight, but he's completely outmatched in terms of combat power. Not to mention, Bakugo seems like a natural at all this stuff. All Might's hand seems to shake slightly as he grips the microphone. Izuku sits up. Izuku looks around before getting back up and starts running. He's running away. Mina says. Not very manly, but he doesn't have a choice. Kirishima says. He's outgunned unless he's got some kind of plan. It's possible. Izuku rushes to the back wall before turning around to face Bakugo with confidence. Bakugo quickly approaches. Why won't you use your DMN quirk against me? Still think you can stop me without it? Bakugo asks. That's not it, Izuku replies. You've been hiding your true power for years. What's the deal, Did you think you were better than me this entire time? Bakugo asks, angrily. Izuku trembles. That's what you think. You idiot. You've always been stronger, Kaken. Izuku looks up at Bakugo with tears in his eyes. I know that you're better than me. Izuku's fist trembles. Can't you see? That's why I want to beat you. Because you're amazing. You're even more of an idiot than I realized. Bakugo says. Come at me. Bakugo yells with wide eyes and a smile. They both lunge at one another. Izuku and Bakugo rush towards each other. Izuku activates One for All in his right arm, pink glowing marks trailing up his arm as he does so. Explosions crackle and smoke emanates from Bakugo's palm. Detroit, Izuku begins. They're gonna kill each other, sir. Kirishima blurts out. All Might hesitates. Both of you stop. All Might decides. Uraraka, now. Izuku shouts. All Might questions, wondering what plan Izuku has up his sleeve. Right? Achiko responds as she grabs onto the nearest pillar. At the last second, Izuku redirects his punch upwards. Smash! Izuku shouts out as Bakugo approaches him fast. He quickly punches upwards as soon as Bakugo is in range. The air pressure redirects upwards and so does Bakugo's explosion. Bakugo gasps as a huge hole appears in the ceiling and all the windows smash. Ida holds onto a pillar to prevent himself from being blown away. What's happening? He asks, confused and shocked. There is now a lot of debris for Achiko to float. Achiko activates her quirk on the pillar. This is it. Sarita. Achiko shouts out as she smiles with confidence and swings the pillar as if it were a bat in a baseball game. Improvised special move, the Comet Home Run. The debris that was in the air gets redirected towards Ida. In the name of villainy, I demand that you stop this. Ida says as he moves his arms to block the debris. Achiko manages to catch him off guard and uses her zero gravity to jump at the weapon. She presses her fingertips together with a look of determination on her face. Release! Achiko shouts and Ida notices her, but he was too late this time. Achiko manages to land on the weapon to detain it. I got it. Oh. The weapon. Ida exclaims. Bakugo shakes with anger as he looks upwards at the hole in the ceiling. This was your big plan. From the very beginning, wasn't it? You were playing me this entire time, you BS-duty. I wasn't going to use it. Izuku starts. Because I can't control it. My body just can't handle the backlash of my power yet. Mr. Aizawa said I'd be useless. But this was all that could think of. Izuku lowers his broken right arm and Bakugo's eyes widen. This was the only way I had any chance at winning. The 15-minute timer goes off. All Might lifts the mic closer to his mouth. You did it. The hero team wins. All Might declares as Izuku collapses, leaving Bakugo wide-eyed and stunned. Achiko slid off the weapon, feeling nauseous. Ida notices and starts to panic. Are you okay? The hero team wins. All Might announces. What a weird way for this to end, Kaminari says. The winners are practically untouched and the losers are both on the ground. How does the old saying go? Tokoyami asks. They have lost the battle but they have won the war. This class is intense. Azui says. All Might headed down to the building the fighting took place in and some robots Izuku out of the building on a stretcher. To the nurse's office, said the first robot. I know, replied the other. As All Might watched the robots leave with Izuku, he averted his gaze to Bakugo who was still standing there, stunned. Bakugo is deep in thought about Izuku and the battle they just had. His breathing started to quicken as he thought. Is they really fought without holding back? Deku would have beaten him with his quirk. Just as Bakugo is on the verge of a panic attack, All Might approached from behind and set his hand on Bakugo's shoulder, snapping him out of it. Young Bakugo, cool your jets. Let's go review your work. All Might says. Whether you win or lose, you can always take something away from an experience like this. As long as you're open to learning. Back in the observatory room. Well, despite the results, the MVP of this exercise is young Ida. All Might announced. Ida was shocked. Huh? Shouldn't it be one of the heroes instead since they're the winners? Azui asked. Valid question. All Might said. Why didn't I choose one of those two? Who has a guess? All Might asks as he raises his own hand. Momo raises her hand. I can tell you why. Ida embraced this challenge. He was the only one who truly adapted to the assigned role. I'll explain. Bakugo's judgment was clouded by a personal grudge against Midoriya. As you pointed out earlier, launching a large-scale attack indoors was a foolish move. It could have been disastrous. Similarly, Midoriya's plan was also poorly thought out, considering the amount of damage that he received. He rendered himself helpless. Not smart. As for Uraraka, she let her guard down mid-battle, and her final attack was far too reckless given the hypothetical stakes. If she'd treated the fake weapon as though it were real, she never would have risked using such an imprecise move. Ida was fully prepared for his opponent's arrival. He had a strategy and never lost sight of his mission to protect the dummy weapon even if he was foiled in the end. Technically, the hero team won, yes, but they took advantage of the fact that this was training. They didn't respect the spirit of the trial. Her explanation really shocked All Might. Momo really has a good eye on her. Well, you overlooked a few things. Young Ida could have relaxed a little bit more in the exercise, but otherwise you nailed it. All Might said, giving Momo a thumbs up. One should always start with the basics and devote themselves wholeheartedly to learning. That's the only real way to become a top pro hero. Momo Yaoyorozu, one of the 4 students admitted to the hero course based on recommendations. Now then, time to blow this joint? All Might said. Let's move on to the next match. Think about everything we saw and discussed as you tackle this training for yourselves. Yes, sir. Class 1A replied. Team B will be the heroes and Team I will be the villains. All Might announces. Ojiro stretches as he prepares for the exercise. Hey Ojiro. Hagakure calls out. Ojiro gets snapped out of his concentration as he glances at the floating gloves of Hagakure. Let's get serious. Hagakure says as she starts taking off her gloves. I'm going to take off all my clothes and totally disappear. Ojiro, feeling extremely awkward now, says, yeah, cool. He glances away, scratching his cheek awkwardly. Just don't look, Hagakure exclaims, feeling embarrassed about this. What's the difference? Ojiro asks, looking back to where Hagakure was standing. Look alive, kids. Show us you're the embodiment of good. Or evil. Let's go. All Might exclaims. The buzzer goes off for the exercise to start. Shoji extends his 6 arms out to his side. He turns one of the hands into an ear so he can hear which floor the other team is on. Mizo Shoji quirk, dupli arms. He can replicate different body parts on the tips of his tentacles. Now that's super strange. Shoji turns his tentacle into a mouth as Todoroki approaches beside him. One's in the hall on the north side of the 4th floor and I think the other's on the same level somewhere. Both are barefoot. I bet the invisible one plans to sneak up and surprise us. For your own safety, go outside, Todoroki says. I'm sure our opponents intend to fight a defensive battle. Todoroki says as he approaches the wall with frosty air emanating from his right hand. He touches the wall with that hand and frost starts to spread across the wall, coating it in ice. But we've already won. As the ice quickly spreads across the entire building, Shoji steps outside. My feet are stuck. Hagakure exclaims. Ojiro's feet end up getting stuck in the ice and he struggles to move his feet. This quirk is insane. Ojiro says and then he hears footsteps approaching the doorway. He looks up and sees Todoroki come around the doorway. Ojiro quickly gets into a fighting stance as if that will do any good when he's frozen to the ground. Pry yourself up if you want, but it might be strong to fight me with no skin on the bottom of your feet. Todoroki says with a slight smirk as he walks past Ojiro and approaches the weapon. In the observatory room, All Might and the rest of Class 1A are shivering. He incapacitated them without compromising the weapon or his teammate. Take close note of his technique, students. All Might says. Oh, he's so strong. Kirishima said as Bakugo looked at the screen with wide eyes. Todoroki touches the frozen weapon. The hero team wins. All Might announced. Ojiro feels defeated. Suddenly, a burst of hot air erupts from Todoroki's left palm as the ice quickly thaws from the weapon and the rest of the building. Ojiro gasps and glances around. Heat too? He questions. Hagakure whimpers. Ow, ow, ow. It's not your fault, Todoroki says. We're just playing on different levels, he says as he glances back at Ojiro. Shoto Todoroki, another of the 4 admitted to the hero course based on recommendations. Quirk, half cold, half hot. He freezes with his right side and burns up the charts with his left. The range of his abilities is unknown. Holy see, Sato exclaims. That guy's kind of intimidating, Kaminari says. He got in on a recommendation, so he must be good, Azui says. Moving on. All Might announced. Time to gather around for a review of the second match. After that, we'll jet on over to the next battle. Yes, sir. Class 1A replies as Bakugo hangs his head, his jaw clenched. Siro chuckles and shoots tape from his elbows and Kirishima hardens his hands as they prepare for the incoming battle. Tokoyami approaches from the darkness and the claws of Dark Shadow appear from behind his black cloak. Azui sticks to the walls like a frog. Momo blocks the door to the room with metal beams so the hero team can't get in easily. Mineta glances at her butt and blushes, flashing a thumbs up. Momo notices and her eyes narrow as she glares at him. Mineta laughs nervously. Jiro sticks her earphone jack into the wall so she can hear any sounds throughout the building. She closes her eyes in concentration as she listens before turning back to Kaminari and pointing upwards. Kaminari walks down the hallway with a smirk, electricity sparking from his hand. Sato gets into a fighting stance as he positions himself in front of the weapon. Koji glances at Sato, sweating nervously. Aoyama walks down the hallway lavishly as his red glass sparkle. Mina glides down the hallway with acid. She splashes the acid into the air with excitement. Surf's up, Mina exclaims with a wide smile. Some of her acid accidentally gets on Aoyama's sparkly purple cape though, burning a couple holes in it. Aoyama is upset that his cape is ruined now. Mina notices and puts her hands together nervously. Oops. My bad. All Might's smile widens. After the training exercise, All Might blows a whistle. That's a wrap. Super work. You really stepped up to the plate. And we didn't have any major injuries, except for Midoriya. You should be proud. All Might says. Excellent first day of training all around. It's nice to hear some encouraging words after our homeroom class. Ashui said. Mr. Aizawa was kind of a buzzkill. The rest of Class 1A nodded in response. I'm happy to bring such staggering positivity to my alma mater. That's all for now, folks. I should go and check on young Midoriya's progress. Now watch how a pro exits. Like he's got somewhere to be. All Might says, his voice trailing off as he races rapidly down the exit tunnel. Okay, you guys. That is a hero. Kaminari says with a smile. I'll never be able to run that fast, Ojiro says. Super awesome. Mineta says, covering his mouth in shock and amazement. All Might races towards the light at the end of the tunnel as he glances back at Bakugo. All Might coughs as he starts to steam up. He quickly races through the doorway and smashes the button to quickly close the door behind him before he suddenly turns into his weak skeletal form. He out of breath. All Might barely has enough time to teach a class. In the nurse's office. It's the second day of school and he's already a regular patient. Recovery Girl exclaims, impatiently. Why didn't you stop him, All Might? Recovery Girl asks with irritation as All Might coughs. You're right, Recovery Girl. I'm sorry. Well, it's no good apologizing to me. Recovery Girl fumes. He's too exhausted from his classes for my quirk. I can't treat all his injuries at once. I did some first aid, but after the 4 is finished, we'll have to wait for his body to heal overnight. She turns in her chair. Come on, All Might. I know you passed your powers on to this boy, but you can't spoil him. I am trying not to play favorites, All Might said as he rubbed the back of his neck. I wanted to consider his feelings, though. He needed to see that he was capable of winning the exercise. Also, will you please not talk so loudly about One for All when anyone around you could hear? He yelled, placing a finger over his mouth in a shushing gesture. Yeah, I know. Recovery Girl replied absent-mindedly. Mr. Natural-born hero. Mr. Symbol of Peace. All Might sighs. Several people know about my injury and this weak form. Like the UA faculty and a certain group of pro-heroes, for example. However, only a select few know the secret of One for All. There's you, the principal, and a very close friend of mine. Young Midoriya too, of course. But no one else knows the truth about my powers. You're the #1 hero in the world, All Might. Recovery Girl says. Does it really matter if you were born with your quirk or not? Do you have to be the symbol of peace? Is it really that important? Recovery Girl asks. If they knew I wasn't, the temptation of this power could corrupt our society. This quirk, those who wield it are responsible for mankind's safety. All Might explains. Recovery Girl sighs. Well, if that's the case, it's even more important for you to be a good guide. You're right. All Might replies. When Izuku finally comes to, Izuku slowly opens his eyes, his vision a little blurry as he notices the 4 drip attached to his arm. He glances at the clock on the wall as he notices the time. It's late in the afternoon. Rise and shine, Sunny. Recovery Girl says as she towers over him, still sitting in her chair. That's all for today's treatment. Come back tomorrow, okay? Izuku walks back to class with an arm bracer and bandages on his arm. Izuku sighs. Mr. Aizawa's probably gonna choke him with his scarf since he missed all his classes. He opens the door to Class 1A and Kirishima notices him as the door slides open. Hey, it's Midoriya. Good to see you back, Super. Kirishima says as he approaches Izuku. Man, I don't know what you were saying during that match, but you were all fired up, huh? Kirishima asks. I can't believe you held your own against Bakugo. Siro says. He's super strong. You did a great job dodging. Mina says. You guys really turned up in the first match? Sato says. So none of us held back in our rounds either. You were far from elegant, but I suppose Aoyama starts, but he gets cut off by Mina. And the dodging was like, whoa. Mina exclaims. Izuku blushes slightly, nervous. Hey, I'm Eijiro Kirishima. Kirishima introduces. He points his thumb over at Zero. We were going over our training results? Hi. I'm Hanta Zero. Zero introduces. More importantly, I'm Yuga Aoyama begins before getting cut off my Mina again. And I just gotta say, your dodging was awesome. Mina exclaimed again. Azui peeks from around Mina. Tsuyu Azui. But please call me Tsuj. Hey Sato. Sato says as he raises a thumb with a smile. Before anyone else could say anything, Mineta jumps up directly in front of Izuku to get Izuku's attention since Mineta is so short. And my name's Mineta. Where the heck did you pop out of? Kirishima asks. UA's shiniest star here. Aoyama tried to get Izuku's attention but he couldn't get a word in. You might sparkle, but you it up training. Sato says as he glances at Aoyama. So noisy. Tokoyami complained on the other side of the classroom. Tokoyami. Ida called out as he stormed over to the small group of students. Stop using that desk as a chair. Get off of it this instant. Dude, you need to chill. Jiro says with a bored expression. You're carrying a lot of tension. Ojiro said, pointing at Ida. No one understands, Ida muttered. I cannot condone actions that disrespect these desks. Not when great men and women, our upperclassmen once used them. Ida said, chopping the air with his right arm. Also noisy. Tokoyami complained again. The classroom door opened and Kaminari and Achiko walked in. So, anyway, wanna grab a bit sometime? Kaminari asked Achiko as he and her carried some books into the classroom. Kinda stuff you like? Anything sweet? Okak replied thoughtfully and then she noticed Deku. Hey Deku, she said as she ran off to meet with him, leaving Kaminari in the dust. Why didn't she heal your injuries? Achiko asked worried. Oh well, it has to do with how much stamina I'm using. Izuku explains. Stamina? Achiko questions. Izuku notices Bakugo isn't there. Uraraka. Where's Kaken? We tried to stop him from leaving but he wouldn't listen. You just missed him. Achiko says. Izuku runs down the hallway and down the stairs to the front of the school to find Bakugo. Izuku reaches the front of the school and notices Bakugo walking towards the entrance in the distance. Kaken. Izuku calls out as he rushes towards Bakugo. Wait up. Bakugo pauses and glances at Izuku behind him. What? Bakugo's sharp gaze freezes Izuku in place and Izuku looks at the ground. I have to tell you something. Maybe then, you'll understand what's been going on. I wasn't hiding my quirk from you. It was given to me by someone else. Recently. But I can't tell you who I got it from, so don't ask. Sounds crazy. I know. It's like something out of a comic book. Only it's real. The thing is, I don't really have any control over this power yet. I haven't figured out how to make it my own, but I'm trying. That's what. I didn't want to use it against you in the exercise. But in the end, it was the only way that I had a chance at winning. Bakugo shakes with irritation at the explanation. I've still got a lot to learn. I know that. That's why I'm here. Izuku continues, Bakugo starts to shake with anger. You'll see. I'll work until I've got full control of this borrowed quirk. And I'll finally beat you with my own power. Bakugo just stares at him not knowing what the F Izuku thinks he's talking about and Izuku knows he's F up. How dumb do you think I am? Bakugo asks. Borrowed power. Don't talk to me like I'm an idiot. Bakugo says as he turns around fully to face Izuku. You already made a fool out of me in that DMN training exercise. So, did you come here to rub it in? I lost. And to make matters worse, it was to you. I came in first in the exam, but that's not enough. When I was watching that ice guy, I realized I couldn't beat him in a head-to-head fight. Sirbi. I even agreed to what that girl said. My attack was so stupid. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it, enjoy that win, Deck. You won't get another. Bakugo said, looking up at Izuku with tears in his eyes. I'm just getting started. Got that? I'm gonna end up the #1 hero no matter what. Bakugo turns back around and walks off again. You'll never beat me again, you BSTRD. Don't even try. Izuku gulped and sighed with relief. There you are. All Might exclaimed from behind Izuku. Bakugo. I found you. All Might, just so you know, pride is an important attribute to have. But while you certainly have the abilities to become a pro hero, there's still plenty you have to learn. Let go of me, All Might. Right now. Bakugo demanded. All Might asked. Bakugo glanced at All Might, his sleeve in front of his face wiping his tears. Save your speeches. I'll be more famous than you and I'll do it without your help. Right? All Might replies nervously as he lets go of Bakugo. Bakugo continues to walk towards the entrance to UA. Mina, Achiko, and Azui were eavesdropping through the window. I wonder what that was all about. Mina says, a fate battle between rivals. Achiko says. Azui glanced at Achiko and Mina. Whatever happened, it looked like Bakugo really wanted to punch him. Childhood friends turned enemies. Okiko replied. Kaken's fuse has been lit. There's a fire under him. But that doesn't change what I have to do. I'll keep chasing after him. Midoriya. All Might called out. What were you saying to Bakugo before I arrived so heroically? He asked. Izuku began to panic. Nothing special. I'm so curious. All Might exclaimed. Why don't you tell me all the juicy details? He asked. Actually, I kind of forgot. Izuku said, making up an excuse.